Our guest today is Ben King. Ben, thanks for being here today.
Yes, thank you for having me, Jason. Super excited to be here.
So Ben, you're an Army veteran. Can you talk through like why you decided to join the military?
Yes. My background is a bit different. It's kind of like how do you go from army to tech world, and I think it's a very fascinating ways that a lot of it overlaps and intertwines. But I joined right out of high school, 18 years old. I always make the running joke, so this is 2012. You still kind of feel that pinch, with the '08 recession. There's two things I didn't want to do. The first was, spend another 4 years in a classroom. Secondly, to that, the really only job I could get coming out of high school, my brother worked at a local grocery store. Hey, let me, you could come work here and do all that. And I just realized like, I don't want to do any of that. Right. So joined the army, 19 Delta Cavalry Scout, and it was one of the best things that I did. It was just, how do I say this? Bright-eyed, bushy-tailed, let me just kind of see new sides of the world. The part I'm thankful for is, just a lot of the lifestyle, meeting some great people, and, was able to eventually obtain a degree, things like that. And it was just a very unique versus just the traditional, hey, you're in an academic classroom environment.
So if people don't know, like I was Army 25 years, so I know what a 19 Delta Cavalry Scout is, right? That's some real hoo stuff, right? There wasn't no fucking bullshit job. Like you had a real quote unquote real Army job, right?
Yep. And it was fun, we would tinker a lot, with the Bradleys and, you know, driving those and just kind of doing the gunneries and, how do I say this? Making the joke of life does seem a little boring sometimes, it was fun. Hey, putting on the ruck and just always being active, and doing stuff like that. But really do just appreciate the times. A lot of that discipline and lessons as, an 18-year-old, there's really only a few environments where you really get that. So I really do just thank all the leadership and mentors during that time that really
And where
kind
were
of
you
helped me.
stationed at?
So, I was one of the first cohort groups that the armor school moved from Fort Knox to Fort Benning.
Okay, I forgot about that.
Yep.
Was it called one unit station training they did?
Yep.
Okay.
So it was very interesting. Okay, we were a very, when I went to basic training, it was a very new kind of setup, if you will, when it comes to, hey, they just moved all this down. From there, I did a year in Korea, and then came right back to the same unit as a cadre member, helping the drill sergeant. So it was just kind of a funny thing of like, oh, I boomeranged right back, and now I'm on the other side of it. And then from there, went to Joint Base Lewis McChord in Washington. And, like coming out of high school, I always called the Pacific Northwest home. And so it was kind of nice. I was like, hey, I'll re-enlist, do a little bit more if you guys can guarantee, I'll be at a JBLM. So it was just kind of nice. It rains a lot, and the saying's always, if it's not raining, you're not training.
Yeah.
So it was, it didn't bother me. I always thought it was kind of nice compared to the humidity in, let's say, Georgia, right? That's kind of the overall journey. And from there, I did some time in the Army Reserves, and I didn't know what to expect. I'm like, hey, I'm going to get out of the Army, and from there, really just, hey, hopefully figure out how do I get started in the tech world. And I got a few stories there for you.
Yeah.
But it was kind of nice to have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. But I had to change my jobs, right? So I changed to a bridge crew member, had no idea what I was signing up
That's
for.
engineering, right?
What's that?
Engineering.
Yep. And essentially, there's a statistic that the Army technically has more boats than the Navy. And it was one of those units. And it was just fun. We would just take the boats out and, we would build this water bridge. What that turned into is, hey, let's have some fun on the water. So,
Definitely. Yeah, so I did basic training at Fort Knox and OCS at Fort Benning. Like, both places fucking sucked, right? It's
Yep.
like, Yeah. Yeah. And the thing with people, like, I've realized, don't realize in the South, they think it's holiday time, but in the winter time, it gets fucking cold.
Yes.
Like, yeah.
And that was one thing that really did shock me at first is like the first winter there. One of my good friends, he's from Arkansas, and there's a winter advisory, and I'm like, oh, it's the South, it's not going to get cold. So we took a road trip down there, and man, the black ice was no joke. So thumbs up there. It
Yeah,
is
black
definitely
ice is no joke. I'd rather
yeah,
much rather have like 10 inches of snow than black ice. Cause black ice, it's so dangerous.
very just an interesting climate. They really do get four seasons. So
So Korea, what part of Korea are you at? Where you at?
yeah, so I was in Dongducheon, so Camp Casey.
Okay, so
Um,
most of that.
yeah, and just a beautiful time to learn. Right, once again, I'm pretty young, 18 years old,
You
and
there 2013.
yep,
Okay.
correct.
Have you heard this joke? Um, what's the best way to make E5 in Korea?
Oh yeah, show up as a E6.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, and I saw it firsthand.
Yeah.
There's quite a few scenarios.
Soju, what's it called soju juice?
Yep. They have the kettles and just it's a very interesting nightlife in Korea. But how do I say this? I really do enjoy kind of the camaraderie that they have socially. And it's a lot of the tradition behind it. And okay, there's kind of a why between how we even open the soju bottle to just show respect to the folks around us and things like that.
People don't Korea, you don't do business in Korea unless you drink, right? They drink first and then do business, right?
Yep.
There's a big drinking culture over there.
Yes. The running joke also is, for folks that grow up in that business culture in Korea, if the wife will kick you out and send you back out if you didn't drink enough. That means you're not networking. So it always just cracks me up.
Here's a funny story for you. So I was in Korea for 3.5 years. First 2.5 I was in Seoul, Korea, and last I was in Camp Rekla, right? So one time I went to Itaewon. So I lived right. Do you remember the Hyatt Hotel was that in Seoul?
Yep.
So my house was halfway between the Hyatt and Gate 3, right? And we go to Itaewon all the time, right? So one time we were in Itaewon, and we go up the street, up the stairs to the bar, right? This Korean dude, he's like, it might be like 9 o'clock now. This dude, like, damn, he's fucking passed out already. Like, what the fuck, right? And then so we were up there drinking, and then we're getting ready to leave. He wakes up and goes up to the bar to start drinking again.
Insane. It is just a very interesting nightlife drinking culture.
Yeah.
But you want to know what really shocked me is even with all that going on, how safe it was.
Oh yeah, so safe.
And they just have such a respectful culture of everyone goes about their merry way. Sadly, whenever there is somebody causing trouble, usually it's one of the soldiers, right?
Yeah. I love the transportation system because even you couldn't speak Korean, like it was like all color coded, right?
Oh, so easy to get around.
And you would see like kids, like toddlers on the train or bus by themselves because no one would mess them. Like my kids, like junior high, high school, they go everywhere to the city by themselves. That's a relief being over there, right?
Yep. It was always a fun game. Me and my friends would play of, all right, let's pick a random color and let's get lost and just jump off on a random stop and see what's there. And I still feel like I haven't even seen a tip of the iceberg of what I want to see. So my plan is actually to go back next year, just for travels.
Are you going to catch the Patriot Express? They do the free one from SeaTac that you can catch?
Yeah, I've been seeing some different options there. I'm just not sure. How do I say this? I always get nervous when it comes to traveling with military stuff.
Yeah.
If hey, there's a headache or a flight gets delayed or canceled or making plans.
A big risk. Yeah, that's a big risk. Yeah, and of course the bad thing is nothing's in Seoul anymore, right? Everything's down at Camp Humphreys, right? So, because I think there's what's called the Dragon Hotels. All that stuff's been redeveloped and stuff.
So I did just see a video of how they redeveloped it, and they still have pretty good deals for veterans and military to stay there. But that was the first play. A lot of people's experience. Hey, you got to go there first and process, do all that.
Yeah.
But it looks like they renovated it, and it's actually quite nice. So I saw a video, and I was like, oh, that may be interesting to check out the old stomping grounds.
Yeah, I love Korea, but man, that plane ride is so long though.
Oh yes. The wife and I do a lot of travel.
Yeah.
So how do I say this? I don't think I've quite figured out the long plane ride thing, but hey, let me just tough it out. I always hate just being crunched in and not being able to move. But with that being said, the way we travel is always going to be fast paced. We're walking around seeing as much. So I'm like, I'll be able to stretch my legs hopefully here soon once the flight's over. So
whenever I do a long flight or any flight in general, I always have a hard time deciding a window or aisle, right? Do you have a preference, window or aisle?
Yeah, I like the window seat just because I feel like it's easier for me to go to sleep. I kind of got a little I'll have a hoodie, ball it up, but the aisle seat, it is nice just to get up and kind of get some steps in. Um, as long as I'm not in the middle seat, I'm a happy camper.
Yeah, for me, it's not like for me, it's not like when I get the window seat, I always have to get up every 5 minutes to use the bathroom. Like man, should I have the aisle? And when I have an aisle seat, it's like the other people get up every 5 minutes to use the bathroom. So yeah,
Yeah, always a flip of the coin. No matter what, I feel like it's going to be a catch 22. So it's yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. So what lessons did you learn from the army that's helping you out right now, or through your post army career?
Yep. And maybe I'll just kind of go through kind of how I ended up where I'm at. It's actually, there's a few things within, veteran and tech community that I think are going very strong. And I'm working with an organization, Service to Software. They're, a skill bridge DoD program. So for the folks that may not know what that is, it is a program that essentially folks that are still on active duty, hey, your last, let's say, 3 months, you're able to start, another career. You're still pretty much, getting paid by the DoD on the Army, but your time is spent starting pretty much a new job, right? And so, um, I love working with these guys because, hey, there's veterans that come in and, oh, I have no sales experience, right? So the focus is the tech sales side of thing or project management. But it's interesting. I always ask kind of the situational based interview questions, and you're getting stakeholders aligned, you're understanding root problems, and you're helping bring these solutions. And I tell a lot of the candidates, hey, that's sales, right? So I bring that up because I thought the only way getting out of the Army to work in tech was to do the coding boot camp, right? So long story short, I did a coding boot camp. I was crunching code and doing all that, and I found out the hard way. Not only do I not like it, but I'm not good at it. So, somebody gave me the nudge and said, are you really passionate about coding, or do you just want to work for one of these cool tech companies? And I was like, you know what? You got me there. Just want to work for one of the cool tech companies. And so he's like, you got to look at these sales development rep roles, business development rep roles. And that is the way I got my foot in the door with kind of the career track I'm on. It was very stressful. I probably had, two weeks or so before I was officially out. And this is the hard part. For the folks that don't know, getting out of the Army, you have a steady paycheck coming in, and then, hey, once that date is finalized, that stops. So it is hard to get something lined up and change careers with a short timeline. But, pretty much joined this startup, on the sales track, and it was just an amazing time. They were a local startup in the Seattle scene, and the founder really did help out quite a bit when it comes to, we want to be transparent and have a good work culture. So the same board slides that he would share for all the investors, he would show the employees as well. And it was just like, hey, a new career, very new environment. Let me just be a sponge. And I learned so much during those first few years. And so, like, going back to the original question, when it comes to what kind of items have I learned, and just going back to just working with other veterans in tech, it's the discipline and grit, and understanding that the saying, one team, one fight, and we're all on the same page. And that's why I like the startup ecosystem of, hey, we all have different backgrounds, but we're coming together and we're going to figure out how to solve whatever the problem is, right? And so that is the biggest thing, just being disciplined, being adaptive, working with other folks that are different, I think are probably the biggest things that I learned in the Army that, has helped me out so much in the startup world, if you will.
So people don't realize there's so many commonalities between the military and startups. Like in the military, we had a thing called military decision-making process. It's basically the same thing as the MVP process, Another thing about the military we don't give credit for, like what's the thing in the military? Get resiliency, get knocked out 10, get up 11. People don't realize, like in the military, I don't know why we have this stereotype about not being diverse, but like I work with so many different people, backgrounds, different things. And another thing about the military, like in the military, you realize every veteran you see there's a minimum level of standard, right? Like everyone in the military at least once got in front of a group of people and gave a class, right?
Yeah.
I don't think anyone else can say that.
And that's the interesting thing of just that culture, even early on. Once again, hey, 19, 20 years old, we're already, getting progressed into management roles. And like you're saying, presenting to higher stakeholders and leading classes. there's very few, you know, organizations where that young and that early on you
Yeah.
have so much responsibility.
The Army does a lot of things wrong, obviously, but man, one thing I think they get right is fucking professional development.
Yeah,
They're all over that, right?
100%.
Yeah. It's yeah. Army can teach a lot of lessons. First of all, it teaches you how to work with different people, different backgrounds. It teaches you how to believe in yourself, give you confidence. You know, obviously it's not for everyone, you know, but yeah, it's like those are the things somewhere that say, hey, if you're 30 years old, your life's kind of fucked up. Consider the military, right?
Yeah. No, 100% agree. And you know, it's I look back and just thankful for the time that hey, I got on a really good track early on, and just once again, the different leaders and mentors that kind of showed me the ropes. I'll always just look back at that time with thankfulness because I still try to emulate some of the leadership principles they showed me. You know, and it's just a very great place for a young person with no experience to get started.
I think another big difference too is like in the military, like every time you leave a job, you're gonna get an award, right? Every time you leave a job, or at least once a year, you're gonna get an evaluation, right? And like when you leave, you get some kind of plaque, some kind of glory party. They don't do that shit in the civilian award, right?
Yeah,
You get laid off from Microsoft or Boeing or whatever the company is or ABC Towing. It's like thank you, or there's no. So Army does a good job of like recognizing people for the most
yep.
part anyway.
And one of my biggest, you know, books I read that really helped me out. The Mission, the Men, and Me. Have you heard of that one? But pretty much that's it was. I want to say like the three M's, and that's kind of some of the leadership stuff they taught. I think like Vietnam or before Vietnam era. But the author takes that and pretty much says, hey, if you take care of the people, they'll take care of the mission, right? And that's kind of the purpose of the book. But bringing that up, that is one of the biggest things I always, you know, want to have front of mind, right? Especially, you know, where I'm at now, we're growing a new startup. There's a lot of new folks coming in. You know, there's a lot of, you know, from young interns to very experienced engineers. It's all about, hey, you take care of the people, and they'll take care of the mission. You know, and that's one of the things. You know, Ruby, the CEO and founder, she does a great job emulating as well.
So one thing I learned from the Army, right? I think Army has a stereotype, you know, like people in charge do as I say no matter what, right? But my experience was any leader I had that was like that, do as I did, like it's my way, not highway, or like the kind of jackets, they quickly fail. The leaders were like kind of collaborative, like took advice. They're the ones that were successful.
Yes.
From my experience.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, seen that firsthand of, you know, some leaders where, you know, it's almost the ego is behind how they lead. And it's so easy to lose trust with folks. You know, and that's one of the big things is to build trust. And it does start with taking care of people, understanding that, you know, they have their own story, they have their strengths, their weaknesses, and, you know, making, you know, everybody's going to be different on a team. But that is one of the things that a lot of Army leaders did great of, hey, being collaborative and understanding, okay, this is, you know, let's say we have to have a hard conversation for this soldier. This is how I have to carry that out versus this other one over there. Maybe it's a lot more upfront and direct, right? And just that social skill of learning to like read the room and really understand how to connect with different folks. Once again, bringing back that point of diversity is just, you know, you have to just kind of be dumped in that experience to really grasp it, right?
One thing I was forced out of a lot of really good leaders in the Army. A lot of my leaders, they're like, you know, like, hey, so and so, what are you doing here? Doesn't your kid have a game at 2? Well, yes, I need to know. Fucking take your ass out of here.
Yep.
Like you can do this after 5 o'clock, right? So I had a lot of good leaders like were like, hey, what are you doing here? Your kid has this. It's your birthday, right?
Yeah, and it's so important, you know, that work-life balance. I know you see that term show up so much, but true leadership is saying, hey, I understand that the family commitments are important just as the organization's commitments are too. And, you know, that's really taking care of people. You know, you probably heard this quite a bit. When it comes to boosting morale in the Army, the best thing to do is give somebody a day off.
Oh, yeah. Easily.
Yep.
Always a day off. Yeah, exactly. So can you do like a deep dive on your own military transition? Any advice for veterans getting out right now?
Yes. I would say the biggest advice is to start early when it comes to understanding what you want to do. You know, like going back to my story of, hey, I started when it comes to the coding aspect. And I realized, oh, this may not be the best path for me. I'm glad I figured that on earlier versus later. The second point to that is the resiliency side. Just keep at it. There is going to be a lot of the rejection from the job applications you put in and things like that. Especially like it's a tougher job market today and such. But with that being said, keep networking, keep applying, keep connecting with folks within your circle and start meeting folks in their circle and just start expanding and networking. I always tell folks, network, and you'll find the right opportunities. They'll come your way.
And one time I try to tell people, right, obviously no one's going to do this, right? But when I was getting out, I would go all these networking events on Fort Lewis. You'd be like, first command, military focus, right? And my thing was like, man, everyone else is a military veteran. How can I help you find a job? So if you can't, like, come to Seattle, right? Go to network event. Like, go to a place where you're the only military veteran, right? So you can stand out, I think.
100% agree. The conversation I had where, somebody pointed me in the right directions of, hey, start looking at some of these sales roles with these tech companies. It was a event that was hosted in the Starbucks headquarters, a few blocks down the street. And, it was veteran focused, but pretty much all the vendors were, civilian companies where, hey, we're looking to hire and grow our team. And it was just kind of nice to, okay, I'm not in that bubble of just veterans and the Army folks, like you're saying, of, hey, if we're all Army getting out, who's going to hire who, right? So,
yeah, and that's like you go play like it'd be First Command, USAA, government contracting stuff. Like you have to get to Seattle, and I realize that's hard. You're in the Army because you're doing PT 6:30, get home at 6. If you're married, your wife or spouse, like you what? You're going to Seattle for 2 hours? What? Like, are you kidding me right now? So I know it's tough.
Yep. And that's one thing is just knowing the expectation that, hey, it is going to be tough. But once again, the resiliency that the Army teaches is second to none. So, I tell a lot of folks, especially the veterans that we currently are working with, just keep at it. That's half the battle.
Yeah, definitely. So for people, military, another thing too, I try to tell people, and of course, the economic situation is different all the time, but man, if you can take some kind of break, right? If you can do it right, obviously your situation is different, but like if you can take a month break off, 2 months, most people like get a job or they're still on transition leave.
Yeah.
You need time to decompress. You need time to go from, Major Jason Cabinets to Mr. Jason Cabinets, right? And I realize most people can't do that.
And it's interesting when it comes to, you do have this identity and, folks put on the uniform and it's like, oh, I feel like Superman, I can do anything. And just kind of adjusting out of that. I don't know if persona is the right word, but there is, that's kind of the hardest change, the support system and kind of the unique aspect of, the way the Army goes about it to just, hey, a complete 180 to the civilian world. It's always a hard time. So I do like that advice of like, if you could take the time and just kind of press the pause button,
Another thing too, like I see a lot of veterans, like, okay, I'm getting out in a year, right? You get out a year. If you're a veteran, if you just get out after a few amount of years, you have no pay. If you're retired, it's going to be cut at least by 50%, right? And they go buy a new house, buy a new car, and they have these extra bills, and they're in a situation where they have to find a job, right? And they take the first bullshit job, they hate it, they quit it within 6 months, and it's this cycle.
Now, honestly, you're gonna laugh. My situation was very much, just bought a house, a new baby on the way, and I got to find a new job. And my wife was so supportive. Just like you're saying, hey, from Puyallup, I'm driving up to Seattle. Hey, I'm trying to network. These networking events go late, and the support is kind of needed. But it does crack me up. Your point, it's stressful, and I was one of those folks of I do have quite a bit of obligations where I need to get things moving quick. So,
and what's bad, at least when I got out, most of the senior leaders are not really supportive when you transition, right? Like two things I was going to transition. It used to be called like ACAP classes or something classes.
Mm-hmm.
So one time in the class, well, first of all, I'm talking about when I got in 2015, it might be different now. But like, it was if you was from E1 to Colonel, you was in the same class, right? So like, okay, I'm trying to find a job. This guy was still in college. This Colonel wants to get a VP job. Like, how can you like take care of all of us, right? Don't. We were in there one time, E4, right? This E5 came in, hey, Specialist Jones, what are you doing here? You're supposed to the range. Sorry, I literally got up next week. That's not my concern. My concern is make sure you're trained up for war. So just go. We're like, what the fuck? You know,
Yeah.
like,
You, no matter, yeah, and it's sad that, I always say there's bad leadership that instead of looking at it as people, they look at an Excel sheet with, color codes
yep.
on it and, okay, you're past due, let's say,
And
for
Jesse
range
Jones,
qualification.
bad
Yeah.
mouth the military rest of his fucking life.
So,
And then probably the worst one, I was in one class, it was a colonel sergeant major. Somehow, as football colonel is brigade command sergeant major. Somehow, they retired at the same time, right, from the same brigade. I don't know how that would work. So we were in classes, and they both stepped up and said, I shouldn't say this out loud, but man, I regret not letting my soldiers do this. I never realized how important this was.
mm-hmm.
And now I know it's not like a hypocrite because I'm doing it, I'm getting out of it, but man, I feel so bad. Like, he said, we both feel bad. We basically fucked up all those soldiers these last few years, you know?
Yeah, I will say that is one trend that I am seeing more and more of are leaders understanding the importance, letting folks have that time to really figure out what they're going to do next. And, hey, here's ample time to get, a successful start. That's why I like those new DoD skill bridge programs that are coming up where, cool, on active duty time, I'm getting experience, right? With the internships, I'm networking and I'm able to not worry about, hey, that, person coming in, hey, you got to go to the range or, those weird situations, but instead be able to focus on that. I do know there's still a lot of situations where, yes, that happens. But I will say, I was getting out first during my first enlistment, and then
Skip a little bit more.
Yep, sorry about that. And so that first enlistment, I had no support at all, very much like you're saying. But then leaving the second time, the leadership team was just so supportive. Hey, we're not going to bother you. Take the time you need, and very fortunate. And I hope that trend continues.
Let's talk about this, right? So when I got out, the big thing was, hey, you get in the military, like everyone in the military wants A personality, right? Drive, focus, do everything, checklist. And so how do you like maybe like, kind of like take it back a notch, so you wouldn't overwhelm your first employer, if that makes any sense.
When it comes to, let's say, like the military persona, all right, that's a good question. And I'll be honest with you, it is a culture shock. So just to kind of set the scene, the first organization I worked for, and the main reason too I wanted to work for startups, I'm like, I want to get as far away from government work as possible, the bureaucracy, and hey, just to get something simple done, here's a stack of paperwork you got to fill out for this and that, right? And I'm like, you know what? These startups that are very horizontal, right? That'd be cool to check out. So I was very much shocked, and obviously 19 Delta Cavalry Scout mentality, and hey, you got to be that hard charger. I realized, I got to turn the dial way down in a respectful manner of, still have that intensity and that drive, but still, showcase it in a way, for lack of a better word, that doesn't scare your civilian employees, right? Of, hey, sometimes that intensity, it just radiates a bit much, right? And that was a bit of an adjustment where I realized, I could kind of relax and get settled into this role and have the patience and time to learn. So
I got two stories about that, right? So my first post-army job was, first of all, I did HR in the Army, right? So my first post-army job was an HR manager at a seafood plant in Alaska. And so, two stories. So we do a meeting every day at 5 p.m., right? So one meeting, the plant manager tells the engineering person, hey, I need this done by 2 weeks. The engineering guy says, I can't get to that until 2 months from now. I'm thinking about, what the fuck? Like,
yeah,
it doesn't happen in the military, right?
It would be instant. It would be, hey, we got to jump on it now,
And the next story was, so I purposely in my mind, like, I try to knock it back notch right. I try to not do all this stuff right. So a month in, the plant manager says, hey, Jace, you're doing a great job. Everyone loves you. But man, you got to dial them back, right? You're making people look bad. And I thought to myself, man, I'm working at 30% capacity. You want to work day on, day off? What do you want me to do here,
It cracks me up. And that's what I tell a lot of folks is the drive is second to none. That's why it's so great to hire veterans. Yeah, there may be, depending on the role, a bit of that learning, but once they pick it up, hey, they're off to the races. That's one thing I really do like about the veteran, especially veterans in tech. There's so many overlaps that aren't apparent at first, but that intensity and that drive, once you get them focused on the set role, I've had a lot of conversations like that of, oh, let's dial it back. And a few of my other buddies that are, veterans as well, that is kind of the common theme and feedback, which is kind of a silly one when you think about it, right?
I know, right? Yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about the military before we move on?
No, that pretty much sums up, kind of the my perspective. Once again, I always do just want to give a thumbs up. Veterans, especially veterans in tech and that community. One thing I like about it is everybody's looking out for each other's back. Everybody, understands just hey, the background that we all have and the great skills we have, and just want to end on a positive note of for the folks looking to get into the space, for those folks leaving the military, like once again, keep that positivity and such.
So, tech sales, is that the same as doing car sales, selling pins, selling shot glass? Is sales basic sales, or is tech sales a whole different dimension?
Now, I would say it depends, right? And I always split up sales into two different buckets. All right, one is transactional sales. I had a friend, the company he was at, it's a software company that just, pretty much helps law firms advertise. You get that person on the phone, hopefully you close it right then and there. And then you have the other side where selling, let's say, some sort of technical or software solution is going to be the complex sale. It may start, I'm talking to a manager or director. We're going to have to loop in a VP of, whatever department. There's going to be a C level sign off, and pretty much everybody has their own perspective of this is the direction we need to go. And it's about aligning those stakeholders, showing value. And, there's usually a big price tag of here's the solution we offer. How are you showing that the value matches that as well? So I'm very much more on in a lot of sales, tech sales, if you will, is very much more on that complex side of things. And there's a lot of philosophies of, hey, how to work backwards, how to communicate to folks and really help them solve their problems. I'm pretty sure we'll kind of get into those details later, but that's kind of the way I like to summarize it for the folks who are new to tech sales, if you will.
So I know it depends on company, but do most tech sales people get paid like straight commission, straight salary, or kind of combination? And then which one do you prefer?
Yes. That is the nice thing. A lot, it could get pretty lucrative for folks pretty quickly of, hey, here's a base salary. And then, based on the deals that you close, the revenue side of it, you get a, certain commission. Some companies have, more complex commission plans. Some are very simple and basic. But I'm a salesperson through and through. I love to work in organizations where, hey, if you put in the hard work, you're going to get, um, you know, the work you put in, you're going to get out, right? When it comes to that revenue commission plan, the accelerators, things like that, that really do incentivize folks to work hard. So
I always heard that if you're a CEO, you actually want your salesperson to be the highest paid people in your company.
100%. It takes care of itself, right? At the end of the day, that revenue is the life stream. And especially for a lot of the folks who may not be familiar with the tech startup world, there's really only two ways to go about it. There's bootstrapping a company where, all right, we're using our own money to fund this, and hopefully we could get that revenue fast to where we have runway. And the other one is to connect with venture capital, and investors to say, hey, I will give you this amount of cash. Here's your runway. Let's see what you do with it. And it's interesting. Every company goes about it different. I've seen some, hey, let's bootstrap. I've seen some that say, hey, I just want to raise a little bit, but we could fund the rest. And I've seen some of, hey, let me raise as much as I can, have a long run rate, and figure it out later of exactly what we're going to do and grow the team, right? So it's a very interesting world. But like you're saying, hey, if you're the CEO, yeah, you want those sales folks really driving that revenue no matter what bucket you fall under.
So I'm going to kind of put you on the spot right now. What makes Ben King a great salesperson?
So first and foremost, and once we get into the AI conversation, I'll share some specific examples. But it's all about working backwards and really understanding what is the pain point we're trying to solve. At the end of the day, let's put the puzzle pieces together and really understand, hey, if I could solve this, um, then hey, my solution is going to solve that problem. And it's easy to kind of work backwards and show the value from there. So the big methodology that, I like, it's an acronym of spin selling. So a lot of organizations use this. So, it's an acronym. So we have situation, problem, implication, and then need, payoff, or your solution. Where I live is here's that problem, and everybody's going to have a problem. Hey, I'm interested, so when I got started, it was a HR surveying software to help folks get in front of employee attrition. Hey, I want data to understand, hey, is that key engineer going to leave my company? Okay, that's great. That's the problem. The employee attrition side, but it's more of the implication. If the dominoes keep falling, you're not able to keep the top talent, or, you're behind, you're a life sciences company and so many engineers within that research and development team are leaving. Well, man, look, you're behind on your competition. Let's really solve that and really understand what's going on. Working backwards from that and really understanding the implication versus just that surface layer problem and finding a solution for that is, what I think makes, a good salesperson, especially in, there's so much complexities with technology and, hey, there's so much that we could solve. Just really being that guidance and helping folks understand, okay, this is the real core problem, and fixing that. Thumbs up. I've seen good results from that.
So when you reach out to someone the first time, like, how long does it take for you to say, just, okay, you know what? This person is going to buy this product. Oh, man, this person would never buy the product. Do you have like a system for that already, or is this like case by case basis?
I'm a superstitious salesperson, so I never consider a deal close until, hey, there's that finalized agreement, right? Um, with that being said, though, it is kind of a learning and experience thing. But okay, those green and red flags of, okay, this deal's moving forward and it's going to move forward quickly, and ooh, there's some sort of objection, or this individual is driving it forward, but we need another stakeholder on board and they shut down the idea. It's always important just to kind of understand and keep kind of that ear to the ground and just kind of feel it out. But depending on what solutions we're doing, some move faster, some move slower. But there's a book I read early on that I really like, but it's called Let's Get Real or Let's Not Play. And I always recommend that to new folks. But it is about how do you have that gentle conversation and ask the tough questions. Hey, are you the right person to talk to drive this forward for your organization? Implementing a software organization wide, how do you guys go about that? A lot of folks, those kind of tough conversations early on is going to do a lot better versus, hey, you're blindsided by, oh, this is going well. And then all of a sudden, a complete 180, we're not moving forward, with your solution, right?
So what's your mentality? Follow up forever until they say no, or you have a number of follow ups and you stop?
That's a good question. And I would say, and this is going to be the cop out of, it depends. But with that being said, I think there is just a tone of follow up. One of early on, right when I was first starting my career, I consider him a mentor. But what he would do, obviously, you got the sales email of, all right, we had the call. Here's kind of the follow up. Here's the agreement. But what he would always do is like understand, okay, this was kind of something that was important for you, once again, going to like the problem and implications. And so he would always follow up with a very soft touch point of, look, I found this article on this specific thing. And essentially he would always, his goal was that, that follow up early on was not to follow up and say, hey, are we closing this agreement? Or, hey, let's close the sale. But instead, hey, I want to give you something. I thought about you, and this is something that you're going to find important. So whether that's like an article piece or, hey, I found this study that we did, or XYZ, whatever that is, here's value. And I think when it comes to follow-up, being strategic about, hey, are you providing value, or are you just being the nuisance of, hey, hurry up and sign this agreement, right? There's a way to go about it. Now, just so you know, where I work now in the cloud industry, I've been in the industry for a few years, and sometimes you just kind of pick up on, okay, this one's not moving forward. Let me focus more of my time on this deal instead, and not prioritize follow up. You just kind of feel that out. But it is kind of one of those things based on industry and based on what you're seeing and feeling. I feel like kind of has to dictate the way you go about it.
So can you tell us like how many leads you manage right now? And second part, like first part of the question, how many leads you have right now? And second part, like how many leads can you like reasonably manage?
No, that's a great question. And I'll just probably take a step back, right? So the organization I'm at now is Loop8. And what we do, it's very unique, right? But instead of it being, let's say, a software solution or, hey, let's implement this, and it's about, hey, does this fix your problems? Instead, we work backwards. What's the pain point? And we're building custom AI solutions. So every customer interaction is very different. We're in the AWS ecosystem, so there's 200 main products, sub products within that. So, one company, hey, for our AI initiatives, we're actually, have in-house engineers that are doing it, but we need help with compliance. We're not doing that right. Or it may be, I'm a mom and pop shop. We're not technical at all, but I know I need to do something here. I need that guidance and that expertise. So when it comes to the amount of leads that we're getting, what we found best is we're, pretty much our go-to-market strategy and connecting with folks. We're doing these in-person workshops. Mainly the Vibe-a-thon. We're vibe coding a solution, but the audience we want to meet are those folks who may not be technical. These are the folks who, hey, I know I could use AI in my business and I could really optimize my employees' time, and we could do more by leveraging this technology, but you need that custom solution for a niche problem. A good example, we just did one in Palm Springs, and believe it or not, one of the folks that we helped vibe code a solution for was literally a zoo. And you would think, what is a zoo going to do with AI? But believe it or not, just all the manual tasks when it comes to the finances of feeding the animals and ordering all the different logistic items, to upkeep the zoo. They said, hey, we have just literally Excel sheet over Excel sheet, and it is a mess. Can we aggregate this data and have something that really does automate some of this so that my employees aren't stuck just sifting through cell by cell? And yeah, we're able to help and really kind of facilitate that. So when it comes to like the amount of leads, we're seeing a very big uptick by focusing on some of those underserved area in industries and organizations where, you could use AI, but you're not necessarily a quote unquote tech company. So that's hopefully that answered your question.
So let's talk about vibe coding, right? And maybe you might agree or disagree with me, right? So I think vibe coding is good for like getting your MVP out there, getting the first product. But I just don't think vibe coding is a way to build an actual company, right? I don't think you can build a viable startup, viable company just using vibe coding, right? I think it breaks too easily. Cybersecurity things, like what do you think?
No, 100% agree. Now, I think where vibe coding comes in is that minimal viable product. Hey, exactly. I just want to showcase something and let's get scrappy. And what I like about a lot of the Vibe-a-thons we're doing is we're able to literally have something tangible come out of that they could show other stakeholders in their organization. Hey, look at what we built. And, even if we're just using dummy data, you could show that functionality. It's not, hey, here's a slide deck or here's, hey, an idea, but instead it's something that you could interact with. Vibe coding works there where pretty much the majority of work we do is, okay, we got to take that and build it into production.
This is one thing I want to do, right? I got to do the research to figure out, like, I like to see, like, before vibe coding, the number of apps out there with no users, right? Mm-hmm. Versus after vibe coding came, how many vibe coding apps are out there with no user, right? I bet it has to be 10,000 more times apps on Apple and Android with no users.
That would be an interesting data point to look at, right? What I do like about it, and this is interesting. I saw this keynote the other day. So pretty much the conversation was, I know we're talking about vibe coding applications, but he was talking about kind of vibe coding prompts for videos, and he was in the media film space, and he just likes to tinker an inside joke between him and his friend. Hey, let me just kind of make up a little cartoon and send it. They get a good laugh. Now, is that going to be a viral video? Is that going to be this big thing? No, but hey, within that circle, they got what they wanted to achieve, and I think that's another thing with applications. Hey, if this business adopts and makes a unique solution that just fits this weird, unique problem of the way they set up the organization and that pain point that grew over time, you know, I think it's just interesting. People are looking at technology now of how do I leverage it for a very specific thing for me, and I think I'll use the word vibe coding that works very well. Not necessarily, hey, you build an app, it has to be the next Instagram, and you got to have 100 million users within a certain time frame. But I will say, I'm pretty sure if you do look at that data, yeah, it's probably
Yeah.
exploded.
If we move on, I want to give a shout out to my people at Two Bar Spirits. Two Bar Spirits is a Seattle-based bourbon company out of Soto. The owner, Nathan, is from Texas like I am. I think what's really cool is they have an all-female production team. It's really cool. They sponsored my Deep Tech event back in June 8th. It's just overall great bourbon, yeah. Um, so moving on from that. So I'm presuming that Loop8 has a product roadmap y'all work on, right? So talk about this, right? Most people think about product roadmap, think like tech people, developers, UX, right? But from my point of view, the sales team has a very important part in the product roadmap, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about how your role is in the product roadmap?
Yes, I would say it's always interesting to, and this is one thing I learned early on, is you got to listen to the customer before deciding. I've seen a few situations where, hey, I got this idea, and I want to build this out, but hey, what is the customer wanting? Is there a market for that? And so when it comes to product development side, listening to the sales folks is so important. Hey, here's what we're hearing from, potential users. Here's what we're seeing when it comes to, man, they would really like this feature or that feature.
But how do you keep that from becoming like feature creep, so to speak?
Oh yeah, that is one of how do I say this? There always needs to be that roadmap of, hey, here's what's next. Now the way we work is we're going to do a lot of the technical discovery. Really understand and really have outlined scope of work that we're going to do. So we're going to build XYZ. More importantly, here's potentially what's out of scope. We want to make sure everybody's on the same page. And usually, like our customers, we do a few iterations, but we kind of take it one phase at a time when developing the items that they need. So, we're working with a life science startup in California where essentially it was a very much compliance focused phase one. They wanted us and our engineers to help them achieve high trust compliance. And now, okay, cool. We, achieve that scope of work. And now we're moving on to another phase where, okay, let's start leveraging some of the new, LLMs and leveraging, AWS Bedrock, things like that to start tracking, a few things here and there. And so that's kind of the way that we do it customer by customer. Now, what we're also doing, there's a few things I'm not sure how much I could share, but we are building, essentially a rinse and repeat tool where, it's the AI automation. Let's say we're seeing a lot of use cases in this industry. We will have a platform where, the goal is that you click it and then, you could essentially deploy an AI solution. Mind you, if there's customization needed, then we would look at that scope. That product roadmap is very much to your point. We really need to look at what customers want, what they're saying, how are they going to use the different automation tools we're building. The biggest one that we've seen is there's a lot of IT ticketing platforms that are just a bit legacy. We could use AI to really optimize those for a lot of some of the traditional IT firms, if you will. A lot of those organizations that, from resetting a password to, hey, printer just broke. I don't know if anybody even prints anymore, but all the IT tickets, we could really help deploy an AI solution right away that's going to automate, some of the main platforms that we've been seeing customers use and really help alleviate some of those pain points of just, hey, it's a very low level ticket. We can just instantly solve it automatically, right?
So how often do y'all review your product roadmap?
Yes, it is always ongoing. So how do I say this? We sync quite a bit. There's two factors to consider as well, right? So we talked about, okay, what do the customers want and how are they fitting? The other factor where we're connecting so much and reviewing, okay, what are we doing, is I've never seen a technology landscape evolve this quickly. I remember when I first started in the AWS ecosystem, and we had AI products such as Lex and personalize, and pretty much, long story short, there are easy ways to use AI. Those are so obsolete right now with all the new bedrock LLMs and new technologies we're doing. So this space is evolving just over. There's always a new LLM that's faster, better. There's all these new technologies coming out. So that's the other thing of like, what are customers needing? How do they use this? But also with the new technologies that are coming out, we need to look at how do we optimize what we're currently building and make sure, using the latest and greatest when it comes to, all the different AI solutions, LLMs, and everything coming out.
So the stats out there, they're anywhere from, like they say, 90 to 95% of startups fail, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, no one thinks their startup's going to fail. There's always this startup's going to make it right. Why is your startup going to make it?
Yes. This is going back to our first conversation, right? There's three things, but I want to first acknowledge the Loop8 team. We got the right people on board. Ruby, the CEO and founder, just does a great job of understanding, okay, this is kind of a gap our team needs. And let's plug in the right person. She's been in the industry for, I want to say 12 plus years now. And just understanding the network of having the right folks in place and understanding, okay, I need, a DevOps engineer to really help coordinate these items. And, for the next hire we're going to do, let's say we're going to bring on more project managers, and she's scaling out the team. But we're really big on when we do hire, we're a young startup, that, hey, it's going to be that right culture fit where, and I like the saying, culture add, right? Everybody's going to be different. So it's not necessarily do you fit in, but
I love that.
Yep.
Yeah. You have to be cautious. All these people, I'm making this up. Oh, everyone rides bicycles. Bring someone on a bicycle. No, like bring a culture add, something that makes your place better, right? So many people get that wrong. I'm glad y'all doing that.
Yep. And that's the nice thing. Our team, there's a lot of diversity, a lot of folks with different backgrounds, and we're all just coming together. So, like, when it comes to, hey, startups do fail, and I'm a sucker for a high risk venture. I love that, the scrappy startup world. But the other two areas where we're going to succeed, so number one, the people, but our go to market strategy is very unique. We built a strategic partnership with AWS. The hardest point when it comes to facilitating a sale is going to be budget and price. So we're able to really offset a lot of those items. And instead of worrying about, hey, from the customer, can I afford this? Is this the right way I should invest money? Instead, hey, let's start the conversation at what's the art of the possible. And we're leveraging different funding programs from AWS. We also have a few partnerships, other organizations like Databricks, Salesforce, very early stages of the new Anthropic partner program. But what we want to do is understand, hey, here's what our customers want to build. And okay, there's so many different programs we can leverage to not necessarily make it a conversation on just budget and price.
So how much did your previous role at AWS help you in getting the partnership with AWS? So is that a big role in it?
Oh, I always say, believe it or not, it's 3 clicks and, just a partner fee to join technically. But it is that strong network that I did build while I was at AWS for 4 years that, hey, we're able to really, really leverage and make the most of it. There's a lot of different programs, and they're making new programs, obviously, with the big AI push. Okay, for folks that want to experiment with these new technologies, there's, a handful of programs that, cool, we can work backwards. This is a good fit. And instead of worrying about the high price tag, cool, with our partnership with AWS, you just worry about the results, the value add. And hey, here's what's next of how do we build this into production and things like that versus, just kind of the more traditional sales approach of like, hey, I got to be that person that hounds you once again with your follow-up. Oh, I want to close this deal. It's not necessarily money focused, but truly we're focused on innovating on behalf of, the folks that want to leverage some of these new AWS technologies.
So Ben, is cold calling dead?
Oh, that's a good one. Uh, I I started, once again, just hitting the phones, and it's a skill that it is not easy. It is that resilience and grit. But is it dead? Absolutely not. Um, we have a big sales development motion. We're making cold calls. We're doing all that. Oh, that's kind of old school. And hey, people just like emails. Hey, a lot of folks don't answer their phones anymore. There's so many different ways to reach people now. So cold calling, is it dead? No, there's a few folks that still like that traditional phone call. There's LinkedIn now and different networking platforms too that you connect with folks. The world is so connected right now than ever before. And so it's always funny. Hey, is the traditional cold calling dead? Believe it or not, I'm a big, proponent of making cold calls still. So
So Ben, how do you decide who to cold call?
that's a good one. You know, this is going back to kind of that product roadmap conversation of listening to the customer, understanding what they want. Once you start seeing trends and themes, um, what I like to do is like, okay, I got a industry picked out. I'm seeing that we're, working with a lot of organizations from this size. Maybe that's a size of how much revenue they have, or it's the size of their employee count, et cetera. But I always want to look back of like, what have we successfully done? What are those themes? And then from there, I work backwards to build like a contact list. There's a few platforms, your Zoom Infos, Apollo, where, okay, cool, you could bring in those firmographics and just kind of, start that new prospecting list of potential folks where, hey, look, I could show success that we've already done with folks in their industry. And then, hopefully get that attention. But yeah.
So regardless where you work at, do you have like some go-to sales tools that you can share?
Yes, 100%. So I'm really big on, to enable sales folks, the prospecting platforms, and I've used pretty much all of them. So Outreach, I know, is a local Seattle one, and it just helps organize the outreach of, hey, your contact list, right? So let's say there's 50 people from that firmographic, list that I made. Okay, I called down 10 of them one day. Okay, the next step for those are going to be an email, but I got to do the 10 calls, do the 10 emails, and you kind of like chop it up. After two steps, it gets so unorganized. So tools like that, it's a must have. Currently today, like we're using reply.io. I've used SalesLoft in the past as well.
There's so many damn tools.
Yep, yep. But I'll just summarize it as that prospecting platform. You definitely need, especially, hey, let me make a campaign or list of, hey, a smart follow up, for those folks we have talked to that, like you're saying earlier, oh, they're not moving forward. Maybe there is a bit of hesitation, things like that. All the way to, hey, the SDR on my team that is making 100 calls a day. Hey, they're still able to be organized too. So that's like the biggest plus.
You got to be hell of organized, right?
Yes, yes. And honestly, I'm not organized enough. I had to do it once, just using Excel sheets for one organization I was at, and it was just a headache.
And then too, like you start from like an initial email list, right? Suppose you like email, I'll make this up. You email like 50 people, right? And then you segment people open the email, didn't open the email, who clicked, who. And for this one email, you got like 20,000 segmentations. And you're like, this guy's here, this guy's here. You know, my man, I don't want to send a follow up email to someone I don't want to follow up with. It's like, man, like, but no one is like making a company like this does it all, right?
Yep, yep.
Like and several different companies. It's confusing.
Yeah, 100%. And so, and I'll be honest with you, like I can't do it manually and stay organized. I'll be the first to say that is not my strong point. So like, a must tool, like thumbs up there. Obviously depending on your sales role, I think there's, some important things to consider as well. There's a lot of, obviously, we're investing a lot with like social media tools just to, it's more of aggregating the data. Our social media and marketing team are doing a really great job there, but also how do you integrate those tools together where okay, that new follower or somebody on your web, okay, we could start
Yeah.
seeing the rhyme and reason behind it and connect. So I think that's important. Last but not least, and this is kind of more of like go to market tools, not necessarily sales focus, but ways to track how folks are using your product.
Yeah.
So important. Customers, you'll talk to them. Hey, we built this solution, and here's the features we want and how we're using it. But believe it or not, like back in the day, we used Pendo, but it pretty much does give you data of like here's how they're actually using it,
Yeah.
right? They're saying they want this feature, but haven't even used it. Versus hey, these features over here, and really does help guide. Hey, here's what customers want in a way. So that'd be
Yeah.
my stack when it comes to different
And
things
what
to
that's
prioritize.
frustrating, like I've used Apollo, Crunchbase, Sales Navigator, all of them are wildly inaccurate, right? It's like it is so like Sales Navigator, their filters, like you might do a filter for, like I want to reach out to salespeople, right? And the thing is, if Ben King had a sales job in 1999, but did nothing since '99, it still pops up, right?
Yep. And how do I say this? When it comes to the contact data list, I've never seen, hey, one with, I'm not even going to say 100% accuracy,
Yeah.
but I'll even take 50% accuracy, right?
Yeah. But then it's like, man, like I should just manually look them up for myself, right? I still gotta fucking verify each lead.
Yep. And that's why, when I first started at Amazon, funny story, but pretty much I was the first cohort to be onboarded virtually. It's April of 2020, and they said, "Hey, don't worry, this is a lot to bombard you all at once, but just a heads up. They say we'll be back in the office in 2 weeks." Long story short,
Yeah.
hey, it was 2 years.
Yeah.
When it comes to how do I say this? Kind of being siloed and just kind of hey, we did have to depend on those contact list and hopefully this is accurate to find new folks and the contact data was bad XYZ. Thank goodness now we're all able to meet in person. So that is the big push we're doing of those in-person events. Um, you know, Actually starting hands-on work, and even if it is just a very rough template, just to show, hey, here's the art of the possible. I think 6 years ago, what that was like, just being just in this vacuum, and hopefully this contact data is right, versus actually being able to shake somebody's hand and say, hey, this is what we're going to help you build, and just literally collaborate right then and there. It's just unbeatable.
So you may or may not be able to answer the question about Amazon, right? Talk about your time at Amazon. I know a lot of people worked at Amazon. Some like they hated it. Other people loved it. Some people, man, I love the Amazon work culture. I really thrived at it. Other people like, man, worst experience of my life, right? Can you talk about your time there?
Yep, 100%. And all my years there, I was on the AWS side. That first part, the first team that I joined, it was essentially, if you go on the website, they have the same fields and everything, but it was the sales team for any contact us request. There's also a live phone number where it connects you with the person. And there was a email, and it would just round robin between our team. The start of 2020, and this is something that really resonated with me. I was talking to a guy who said, hey, it doesn't matter what industry you're in, everybody's now a tech company. I got to figure this out. And long story short, he was a small business owner of a jiu-jitsu gym, and I was able to help him set up a live streaming thing for that, right? So there's a lot of cool use cases. That contact us page, one time I'm helping somebody set up just a very front end website, a very easy, hey, here's how you host on AWS, super plain and simple. The next call I would have, it's, hey, I need this ground station infrastructure, so I'm relaying data with UAVs and satellites. And it's like, oh, wow, let's look up the documentation. So that team, it was a bit of the Wild West, but I just loved it because it really did challenge me, especially being new to AWS. Hey, let me really weed through the documentation and learn. But from there, I went to the pretty much the software partner team. So there's a lot of partners associated that make softwares on the AWS marketplace. And I actually had a good time with that one because it was a new sales job every 2 weeks. Hey, one day we're working with Databricks. The next day we're working with, Veeam, or, it was just all these different companies. They would give us enablement, and then we would host a joint webinar together and then start the sales process from there. And it was just really cool just to see what all these other SaaS companies are doing. But then from there, I went on to an account manager portfolio just on the West Coast, helping organizations, mainly Nevada, Idaho, Oregon, Washington. And it was just great to connect with customers and have that experience of, okay, I understand the technical side of things and how some folks are going to leverage AWS and just being able to help. It was mostly small, medium-sized businesses and startups. It was pretty rewarding. The thing to really answer your question when it comes to the corporate culture, I love the Amazon principles. I've seen a lot of, very much like the Army.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of leaders that really embodied it. And then I've worked with some that, okay, they really didn't. But my overall experience at Amazon was a thumbs up. It was a great opportunity to learn, but also, has really helped, set up a great career path. Yeah, that I get why some people would say that feedback of, okay, it's not a good fit for me. And believe it or not, as much as I like it, I do like this scrappy startup culture more than, it is a bit, I don't want to use the word corporate, but, it's a larger entity and you do have some of that. So I do like the startup side better, but the 4 years I had at AWS were some of the best in my career. It was an awesome time.
One thing I think is crazy about Amazon, people don't realize, like, I had a good friend who worked for there, right? I can't remember if she did, right? And we were talking on the phone one time. I said, how long you been at Amazon? She told me she's been like 12 years, right? 12 years is not really a long time with corporate, right? And she said, man, let me look something up. So you look, there's some kind of database you would do. And according to the database, even though it's been there 12 years, see, I've been there longer than 95% of Amazon, right? It's amazing how Amazon, with all this high turnover, most people only work last 4 or 6 years, right? It's built this like this corporation, right? This everyone said, man, Amazon's one of the best, and without it's just amazing how this high turnover and they're still like successful.
Yes, and one of the things too, like what I've seen personally in my experience, and I know like obviously there's been a lot of reorgs and there's some frustrations. I would say, recently, right? We've all seen some of those headlines. But, during my tenure at Amazon, one of the reasons for quote unquote that turnover, it's because it is a great staircase. And there's so many folks that want to, grab the talent that's at Amazon and, hey, let's give you the offer that excites you and brings you over. So that's another, I feel like that part isn't talked about enough when it comes to, they really do help folks get to that next level.
Amazon that actually do kind of pay lower than the other companies.
I was paid higher. I'll say that.
Okay.
I was pretty happy with it.
Okay.
I think all the benefits too they have were really good. Even the smaller things such as I would have a free Orca card. I take the train into Seattle. Just small things like that were always nice. I love the different offices.
Yeah.
I took my wife and kids for a tour to the office one day, and at the top floor of the Frontier building, there's an arcade, and we went to the Spheres, and my wife's like, "How do you get any work done?"
I know, right? Yeah,
yeah.
And I know you heard the horror stories, like heard the horror like, hey, someone's a VP of something, and it's Monday afternoon. Hey, you going to India tomorrow, right? Okay, and you got to fly economy to India, right? But then again, man, like all the stuff they do for you too, right? It's like another thing people realize that companies like Amazon, like suppose they pay you, I'm making this up, $200,000 a year, right?
Yeah.
It's not a fucking non-profit, right? You make $200,000, whatever you make, you have to expect they want you to give double that amount of value, right, to the company, right?
Yeah. And that's an easy one for folks in sales. That is the nice thing I do like about a sales career is that, hey, it's cut and dry. What's the return of investment of you being there? So that math is pretty easy, but I know there's a lot of innovative orgs at Amazon where, hey, let's see if this works. And I know sometimes there's, a bit of that of, hey, is this technology going to stick, or not? And I know sometimes that plays a factor too. A lot of organizations kind of have that where, hey, the famous like cell phone, hey, that didn't work out,
Yeah.
But I will say this: I do like the Amazon principle of being frugal.
It's just like it's military straight through and through, right? I was like, man, did Dick Rose serve in the military?
And it makes a lot of sense and makes you think about the overall investment that So I would do when I was an account manager a lot of events, and hey, we got to do it frugally, and it was more of the challenge of how do I make this successful with using the least amount of money from the AWS budget, if you
Yeah.
will. But hey, let me connect with a partner organization, and hey, the local SBA office will also help contribute to that event, or just bringing
Yeah.
folks to the right room. And honestly, it's helped me think outside the box of there's a lot of problems that if you throw money at, it feels like you're fixing it.
But you're
But
not.
yeah,
You're
the
not.
frugality one, you really got to think, hey, does the data show that this was worth the investment, and how do we go about it in a smart way? So,
So the name of your shop is Loop8, correct?
yep, that's correct.
Do you have to know the background of the name? Does it mean anything, or just a random name?
So, essentially, you'll see Loop 8. We got it because the DevOps symbol, and you'll see kind of that infinity sign DevOps symbol with us. So it's kind of like that infinite loop. Once again, building the custom solutions, right, for each customer, and it is a different case by case basis. We always have to be in a continuous loop, but our bread and butter and history of the company was helping folks with DevOps at first. And so that's kind of the play on names. But I do like it for a lot of reasons. The term our marketing team's really pushing is loop in with Loop8, and I'm like, all right, that's pretty catchy. I'll take it.
So you're working with AWS, Databricks, Salesforce, Anthropic. Like, talk to the process of gaining all these great partnerships.
I would say it's one of the best kept secrets, within the tech world. And I learned this once again, having so many experiences with a lot of like software and infrastructure platform as a service type companies where, okay, our go-to-market strategy, we know folks are going to have a more successful experience and be a long-term customer if we have certified partners and engineers build it out correctly at first, and we invest that overhead cost for them. And there's just so many different programs that aren't necessarily outwardly advertised. But if you build trust, and there's different tiers for each partners and different programs within each tier, and everybody goes about it differently. But truly, there's so much to unpack of, oh, wow, here's a new program that this company's rolling out, and here's how we can help customers kind of leverage that. It is just one of the great things I found that really does help solve those common pain points of, let's say for AWS. Once again, I'm not good at coding. If I'm trying to set up, a very complex, let's say data lake, I'm going to run into trouble. However, let's say an engineer from the Loop8 team who is certified in doing that comes in and does it, I'm going to be pretty happy seeing that end result. And pretty much alleviating the headaches. There's a lot of investments that a lot of these organizations are making, and it really is what's going to be the best fit for our team, what's the best fit for our customer, just kind of seeing where that magic intertwines.
So why partner? I don't know if I can answer this question, but like, did you previously reach out to Anthropic, or do you reach out to ChatGPT first, Gemini first, or just Anthropic reach out to you? Like, why specifically Anthropic with all the other companies like that out there?
That's a great question. And I would say we're very much an AWS first partner. And that's just kind of my background, and a lot of the team's background is in that space. What areas are very much complement that the AWS ecosystem very well, and that's kind of how we identified the handful of partnerships, that we made of, the amount of times when I was working on the partner team that, hey, we got a webinar with Databricks. Hey, we got a webinar with Anthrop. It was, I just know that they're very much already ingrained in the AWS ecosystem, and there's a lot of services that kind of stack very well on each other when it comes to, hey, maybe I'm using AWS for this and Databricks for something else. And just kind of having that expertise all in one house. You don't have to find another partner and things like that. So that's kind of the strategy behind why we chose what. With that being said, it's still an evolving world of, all right, what are we going to do next? And just kind of keeping that ear to the ground of,
So why AWS versus Azure or like Google Cloud or Rackspace? Why AWS?
Yep. That's a great question. And, being selfish, it's not having that experience.
Your background helps, yeah.
Yep. And once again, even the AWS ecosystem, literally a couple clicks and a partner fee. Yeah, you're an AWS partner. How do you go about climbing the tiers, and knowing the right folks to talk to hey, we want to be looped in, let's say, to healthcare customers and the startup side of things. I know a lot of folks of like, hey, here's what we're doing here so we can help your customers. And so it really is just kind of organically, hey, that's kind of where our network is at. So let's
Yeah.
just start here.
So one thing I always thought about frustrating by tech, right? Maybe just me, like, pose like you're trying to solve something with tech, right? There's some kind of problem you can't figure out, and someone said, "Oh, just do this." You're like, "What? Like, well, are you fucking kidding right now? This is this right all the time? Like, so many tech problems. Like, man, like, are you kidding me right now? It's like it's so simple, but you don't know, right?
And that's one of the things I like about the Vibathons. Kind of going back to that, of it is funny. Hey, people talk about. Hey, this is the business use case I have. Here's the problem I'm seeing, and it is so daunting. And they would be surprised of even though we just let's say build something that could walk you through it. When we build out the architecture diagram and show how the different services are going to work together when we deploy it into production, it's always interesting to kind of see depending on their technical background, just seeing how it all works together and just that light bulb. Oh wow, this is gonna work, and this is how it all gets pieced together.
I think another thing too. This is my opinion. Again, I don't think people realize this. I don't think this tech is great to solve problems, but I don't think people realize like how much of back end tech, for lack of a better term, is put together by duct tape, right?
And a shameless plug for Loop8. That's the biggest problem is we want to build it right, but also the strategy behind it as well, and make sure the strategy is correct. So one of the biggest industries that we do work with, it is a lot of like healthcare life science companies. You can't put it together with duct tape, right? All the compliance efforts and let's say hey, there is a data breach, or hey, you're out of compliance. Oh, that's a big headache for everybody involved, right? So that's the other reason for these partnership programs is connecting with the right folks to build it out right. Because I've seen some organizations that, hey, our let's say software crashed, and hey, we didn't build it right. Hey, it's not scaling properly. Those are some of the common pain points, and that's why I definitely advise not to be quote unquote building with the duct tape of, oh, I could just deploy this or do that and it's good, but truly have that strategy behind it. The other big thing, and I'll jump into this when it comes to like the AI strategy. It's easy to give a thumbs up and say, hey, we're using AI. There's the big doomsdayer scenario that we're all hearing. We're all going to lose jobs to AI and this and that, right? There's a lot of organizations who, hey, that's the way they went about it of, cool, I could alleviate this department with AI, and there was no strategy behind it. Now, what they're saying is, okay, yeah, the AI costs money. Okay, hey, we didn't see this coming.
Token's kind of fucking expensive.
And now the added investment of hiring those folks back. So here at Loop8, the way we go about it is like, we want strategy behind it, and it starts with, you'll hear us verbalize this quite a bit, the human in the loop when it comes to like AI and cloud. We want to optimize that human experience and build solutions that solve those pain points, not necessarily oh, hey, this is from a 10,000-foot view going to solve all your problems and make hasty decisions, right, when it comes to like the big scheme of things. So I always say, like, to that point, it's the AI strategy and making sure things are built right, not necessarily okay, the duct tape,
Definitely. So is tech debt really a bad thing, and does Loop8 help with tech debt?
Yes. We help a lot with tech debt. We help a lot with, hey, we have legacy infrastructure. The biggest use case in, there's a program that helps folks with this. And we've done this plenty of times, and it's, coming up so much of, hey, I want to start using these latest and greatest AI technologies, but hey, we're still racking and stacking servers. Hey, we have all this outdated stuff. I got all this tech debt. Hey, I really need somebody to come in and help me fix this. We've seen that so much. There's a program called MAP, Migration Acceleration Program, that we could come in and pretty much optimize and really help modernize the infrastructure. And cool, now next step, we could focus on the AI, and we could focus on the different data initiatives or whatever that may look like next. But yeah, that is one of the biggest pain points that we help a lot of folks solve is, yeah, I can't do all this over here because I am still working with these legacy, technologies, and the technical debt is really bad, da da da, and the CTO with his back against the wall of, oh my gosh, I'm way in over my head. What do I do to fix this? To where you could start competing because you're using newer technologies. We definitely do a lot of those use cases.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Top of this podcast, I don't know if you still do it, called Claudio with Chance of Awesome. Do you still do that?
Yes, that's the exciting thing. And we pressed the pause button. Long story short, my co-host Hayden, a lot of great, beautiful family things that he pressed the pause button to really prioritize. So he just got married. And now we're going to pick it back up. It is very AWS focused, but kind of on the conversation today. Hey, I'm interested in AWS. How do I understand these exclusive programs? How do I get the most out of it? What are some of the, everybody wants credits to offset the monthly bill. What are some ways I could go about that? So it is kind of like inside tips and tricks, but also, hey, what's next? What is AWS doing? Just getting that insider look. So we're picking that back up. Stay tuned. We're looking at releasing the next episode into August and kind of starting a new series. So
I don't know if many people know about this, but AWS actually has a really good program. I think it's called AWS for Startups. Can you give us a background on that or talk about how that works?
Yep. You'll hear the main. So there's a lot of sub, programs in that, but the big one is Activate. So if I'm a new organization or a new founder, and let's say, hey, I got my base team. We're building these items. AWS is going to allocate credits to offset that monthly bill. And just kind of going backwards, the way AWS does the payment is, think of like an electric bill. If you spin up a server in the cloud and then turn it off, okay, you're just paying for that small amount of time that it was up. Hey, if you have a bunch of servers on all the time, running 24/7, all right, yeah, you're going to see, pay for that and see a big difference. So a lot of these programs are really focused on helping new startups and customers, hey, let me focus on innovating, not necessarily, hey, let me just do the bare minimum when it comes to the bill because, maybe they haven't raised funding yet, or maybe, they haven't found the exact architecture they want to go with, right? They're able to kind of experiment and get that strong start. So AWS Activate is a great one. What tacks on with that is it's called the AWS Proof of Concept funding. But what it's going to do is allow a partner like Loop8 to come in and say, all right, you have this core team. Why not slide in our engineers to help build out some of the important components? So a good example, the life science company that we're working with, we helped them achieve high trust compliance. They're able to go to investors. And this is a pretty cool story. They raised 16, I believe it was 16 mil in a Series A funding. And that's pretty impressive. They closed the funding. Next thing you know, the next newsletter, they reopened it, and there's more folks wanting to invest. They raised 26 million. So that's what success looks like. But we're able to kind of leverage those funding programs to help them get that strong foundation, that strong start. So, once again, case by case basis, there's quite a bit we could definitely do to kind of help folks that are, hey, this is a new venture. This is what we're doing.
So, Ben, another two-part question. Are there industries out there where like they should not use AI, or any cases where AI cannot improve your company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So here's a good example. Let's talk about the headline with Disney recently. And the wife and I were big Disney adults. And this is going back to that point of you got to have AI strategy. So they had this big agreement with OpenAI, I believe, billions of dollars of investment. What it was going to allow to do was make kind of a Disney portal where, I could essentially use AI and make Disney short films or do this or that. The biggest business use case for Disney is literally having, rights to characters, making it exclusive, and kind of curating that Disney magic, whether that's a movie or going to the parks. And there's so many small details within that, right? So have you ever heard of the princess rule where they could only look front? They never look at each other.
Yeah.
And hey, that helps the Disney merchandise sell, things like that. Why would you ever give that away to just anyone and everyone to just create whatever, right? So I always bring up that use case of, all right, why would they do that? It doesn't make sense, but it came from the pressure of we got to do something AI related. And once again, going back to that point of what was the strategy behind that, and end result, okay, they backtrack. This isn't a good idea, and it's a rumor, but turns out they're gonna start a illustration team and kind of get that old fashioned old fashioned cartoon for the next Disney princess movie. That's a cool use case where okay, you rushed into this AI initiative with the pressure of, oh, we got to show we're doing something. And it wasn't the right fit, right? And that's where it's so important to have a strategy, a product roadmap, a plan of this is where it makes sense. With that being said, though, I think everybody's going to be using AI in a lot of ways. And it's important to connect with the right folks to help make it make sense, right? So I use that example. So I would say like that's a good one of, hey, AI was not a good fit, but obviously does Disney use AI? Yes. There's probably a million other ways to use it, but it was that use case of I was scratching my head of like, okay, does this make sense? What's the end result going to be?
Like, I don't know how you do it. How could it be you have your daughter and somehow you use the AI to bring Moana into your fucking like bedroom, right, and play with Moana, some kind of way, right?
Yep. And there may be some things like that, but let's go to I got 3 boys. They're excited about the new Spider-Man movie coming out. Okay, just flooding all that of, hey, here's all this content, but none of it matches up. And that would, how do I say this? The big storyline, let's say, with the Marvel Cinematic Universe, how to say this? You're going to just allow a lot of folks to make a lot of noise.
Yeah,
when
that's true.
Disney's business model is about, hey, those exclusive rights in movies.
Yeah, and there's some goodness. What's the word like exclusivity? How you say that word, right?
Yep.
There's goodness that too.
But it's just one of those use cases, and that the powers that be over there said, you know what, this isn't the right direction. But that's so important to understand when it comes to your AI initiatives. The reason and the why behind it, going back to like the SPIN acronym. Okay, cool. Maybe there's a surface level problem. Maybe there's this, but we got to really dive deeper and understand what is that really, really tight pain point that if we solve with AI is really going to make the business run more efficiently. It's going to, help empower your employees instead of taking the approach of we got to do something and we're making hasty decisions, So that's kind of that consultancy AI strategy that we do.
So totally random, right? So like you said before, every company needs to be an AI company. Like I have a firm belief every company needs to be an AI company and a media company, right?
Mm-hmm.
So putting on the spot again, you're a CEO of a cowboy hat company. How do you utilize AI media to make your company better?
Yep, and it's funny because a lot of the big use cases that I'm seeing with small, medium-sized businesses, we get directly into media and kind of that. Hey, how do I optimize this? So we're literally doing this use cases. There was a fashion organization that we did. Hey, let's use AI to really showcase the new product line. Hey, does it go with this outfit? And we kind of made this tool that with all the different array of items that this fashion business had on hand, you're able to kind of do a virtual look of let me put all the pieces together. So for selling that cowboy hat with the AI, hey, what would that look like on me with also, the leather boots that you have for that lineup? And then, you got to have the belt buckle to go with it. And, we can do things there. Depending on how big your team is, the other big one I'm seeing is I can't keep up with the social media and updating the catalog. And there's some smart ways that, we could use, like let's say like an AWS like Nova model, which could help. Let's say I take a picture of the hat right now, but the lighting just isn't where it is, or maybe we want to have a 360 view or whatever that may look like. We could start using AI to kind of automate those things, and the pain point of spending all the time to really manage all that. We could definitely we built tools in place to literally help small business owners automate kind of that tedious work.
And how long have you been with Loop8 so far?
Yes. So, Loop8, we're a very new startup once again. So it's been about 8 going on 9 months.
Okay.
Now, with that being said, we're not new to the space. There's a lot of experience, but it has been how do I say this? Already we're seeing kind of that hockey stick.
Yeah.
It's been a fast, last couple of months
So let me ask you
growing
this:
and scaling.
what's a sales technique that you tried and you're like, man, this ain't working, and you quickly got rid of it?
Um, yeah, there. Okay, so and I always get a lot of slack for this one. Have you heard of the book The Challenger Sale?
Yeah.
Yeah, I always get in trouble because I know it's supposed to be the end all be all sales methodology book. I cannot stand that book,
Yeah.
and I cannot stand it because first off, literally a majority of the book is trying to sell the idea that we did this study and you got to do this, this, and that to close the most deals. But there's all these other personas. What were they doing to close even the percentages? And they kind of template people. I believe it's like five different categories, and the challenger is going to sell the most. But maybe the person that was more passive had a better rapport with one of the business leaders and was able to close the deal. The study to really showcase that, and then kind of the action items behind it. Early on in my sales career, I was really pushed to, dude, you got to do the challenger method and the challenger sale, and I did not see success in all honesty. I know a lot of folks, hey, it does resonate with them, and that's great, kudos to them.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just that I always get slack of like, oh, you don't like challenger sale? No.
Here's one for you. Like, suppose someone, okay, there's like a junior salesperson, right? They're new to sales, right? What are the indicators they need to tell them? Like, you know what? Maybe this ain't the job for you, right? Like, what's indicators like somebody doing sales? How many often they can't close nothing? Someone say, oh, you know what? Man, this is not the career for me.
Yeah, and it goes back when it comes to resiliency. That's a big army word, and I always loved it was summarized to me of you got to be the tennis ball, right? Things are bad and you're falling. Do you bounce back up? I have seen a lot of folks have successes, but you'll always also have the downs as well. How do you come back from that place and get things back on track? How do you stay motivated? Everybody starts, let's say that sales development, business development role where you're making 100 dials. And yeah, there's folks I'm coaching now. Yeah, you made the 100 dials and didn't, get any success. How do you wake up the next day and be motivated and get right after it again? But there's that picture online of the guy with the pickaxe, and
the diamond's coming up. Yeah.
Yep. He's turning away, and he was so close.
If he has one more hit, he would like got it.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that's what I think of. It is a mentality thing, but are you going to keep trying? Are you going to keep bouncing back, or hey, this is it for me. Let me walk the other direction. And with that being said, sales is not for everybody. I want to, so like sometimes it is that self discovery.
Yeah, you gotta have some mental strength, right?
Yep. Just like doing the coding and engineering stuff for me, I was not a good fit, right?
Yeah.
And I think it's just finding that mold for everyone.
So, I think it's on your website. That's like 30-50% cost reduction, 95% plus accurate data, all these stats, right? Like, can you validate these stats? Like, can you prove these stats? Like, can you talk about why these stats are important to you? All that kind of stuff.
It goes back to that conversation of tech debt, right? And some of the legacy systems. So pretty much here's the homework for Loop8. The scenario of, hey, I'm the CTO and, I can't innovate with AI because all the legacy systems I have. Essentially the homework for us, we have to submit to AWS architecture diagrams, and here's their current cost. And here's what the current cost is going to look like, on AWS long term. So we are able to get those numbers and do the math. And people are seeing those, overall like efficiencies and price decreases. The other thing as well is, the credit programs and things like that. If it's big enough, there's private agreements you could sign with AWS, et cetera, right? But we want to get that number low. Hey, you have the right technology. And the current bet with AWS is that savings that we free up, that's going to be the next phase we do. And now, look, I got budget to innovate and start doing more stuff with AI or data or this or that, right? And so that is why there's so much investment in this of helping folks get things done the right way. And they're investing quite a bit of money to do that. because those are legit numbers, and we have to submit. All right, from where they're at today versus where they're going to go tomorrow, and have those calculations. So
Talk about this, right? I think a lot of times when people reach out to you and say, "I want to be a partner," what they really mean is, "I want you to do all the work, and I can take all the advantage, and I take advantage, right?" So how is AWS and Anthropic and Databricks like a really true partnership for y'all?
yes, there's a few ways we all interact with each other, and the thing I like about it, and I'll first talk about AWS, since that is kind of the main umbrella that we work under. But there's a few ways to work. First, are they going to send us deals and introduce us to the right customers that would be a good fit for us to work with? But also, we introduce them as well to the customers in our network from our different go to market strategies, right? So there's a good mutual fit there, and Databricks and Salesforce, et cetera, they all do the same. The other thing is just, hey, if it's the right use case, and once again, being the sales guy and being able just to be like, hey, look at all this investment we're pulling and offsetting that cost, da da da. It makes a very strong case of, hey, this is a no brainer. Let's sell to the other stakeholders within your company. Let's get everybody on board. And so, even though Loop8 does the hands-on work, the different organizations that we do partner with, just the ways that they support us, whether it is that investment, or hey, there's a very new AWS service and they bring on a specialist to help educate the customer, and just kind of hey, the subject matter expert for this very new thing is able to come in and help, and it really is a co-sell ecosystem that I would say when it comes to the word mutual, there's no gripes and complaints from what I see of, it's very even of, cool, the hands-on support and the ways that we help each other. And, once again, it's always a different use case, and there's all the different things that AWS does. And so it's just nice to kind of have that partnership and the availability for any resources we may need, or, things like that. So, honestly, that's hopefully that summarizes that question.
So Ben, what's a myth about sales you want to debunk right now?
The biggest sales myth that I would debunk, I would say, just kind of the big sales is kind of the sleazy. You're trying to make as much money
The
as
used car
possible.
salesman mentality,
Yeah,
stereotype. Yeah.
the used car lot. The guy comes out with the Hawaiian shirt, and hey, if I get you to say yes 3 times and then bring out the contract, hopefully I trick you into buying
Can I
a
look at
car.
the engine? No, I can't open the hood for you right now.
Yeah, the pricing isn't transparent, and oh, you never know, and it just has that yucky feeling of, okay, um, you know, and how do I say this? That, I think, is the biggest myth. When sales is a bad word, so to speak, right, for a lot of folks. But truly, what sales is, once again, is helping folks find a solution. And if you don't have good intention of helping folks find that solution, my North Star is, am I going to force somebody that, hey, this isn't a good fit? Or do I, as a salesperson, say, hey, actually, this isn't a good fit. This is the direction you should take instead. And I've had, different solutions in use cases where, hey, that was kind of the outcome. And the person was very thankful for that. And I think just doing right by folks, you know, the money and all that, the sales side of it, it's all going to come together. So that's my philosophy. That's my big
Nice
myth to debunk.
So let's talk about some like kind of fucking some fucked up sales strategy, right? One thing I hate right now, like once a week I look at my calendar like, uh, and I don't know how they do it. They put on my calendar webinar for blah blah blah. Like first of all, who the fuck are you? How you get my calendar right? And there's no way to unsubscribe, no way to say no. And my thing is like someone post a webinar for like 1 to 2 p.m. That means that's an hour no one else can book time with me, right?
Yep. And what? There's a lot of trends that I like seeing where tech is going, especially tech sales. But a lot of this is like state legislators, and California is really big. Don't get me started on emails in Canada. But if you don't have that unsubscribe link, there's legal fees.
Yeah.
And but I do think it's just an important courtesy, right? Let's say cold outbound outreach to give the folks the chance to opt out. Oh, that's not a good fit for me. It's important. First off, if you're annoyed by that email, are you going to attend the webinar? No. Are you going to buy their solution? No. So
So this is one thing I want to do. I really want to do this one time. Like, suppose someone put me on a fucking invite me to a webinar on my calendar, right? I have no idea what it was. I want to start the fucking webinar to be a fucking jackass, right? It's like let's be a fucking jackass the whole fucking webinar, right? I probably never do that because of the type of person I am. But I think it'd be so funny, right? Like I don't know, Spy Glass Company webinar, learn how to make spy glasses, right?
Yep.
Hey, I'm Jason. Fucking Spy Glass Company.
So you'll find this pretty funny. There's all the timeshare. Hey, we'll give you 3 days in Hawaii or Vegas.
Yeah.
So the wife and I like to join some of those just to hey, let's get the couple of days.
Yeah.
But the big thing is, hey, you got to go in there with a persona.
Yeah.
We got to put the so one time I'm the snobby trust fund kiddo,
Yeah.
and then the next time, hey, we got the British accent going,
Yeah,
or just have some
funny.
fun with it.
So I don't think many veterans like when they transition, they think, man, let me do a sales job. Why should more military veterans like consider sales jobs?
Yeah. And it's funny how many conversations I've had with folks of no, I've never had any sales experience. So I don't think I would qualify. And once again, every veteran, is finding solutions to complex problems on a day-to-day basis. They're working with different stakeholders, so it's already a natural fit. The other thing as well that a lot of folks don't know, and I really didn't know either when I first started sales, but hey, it's a lucrative career path. And a lot of folks in the military, like, how do I say this? There's a lot of safety and structure, but is it the most lucrative career path? Probably not. But with that being said, there's so much opportunity in this space. And I think a lot of like veterans and folks could really take advantage of, hey, here's this lucrative career path. And hey, if I work hard and all the hard work I'm going, I could, provide the life I want for my family. You could travel, do the trips, have the fun experience for the kiddos, etc. And that is probably the other big reason why I think a lot of veterans should start looking into like sales career paths.
So with tech sales, right? How like how do you determine how long the sales process should be?
Um, it goes back to the two buckets, the transactional sale or that complex one. Obviously, the complexity of building custom solutions that we do, I always kind of ballpark it. We did the math, right? The average sales cycle for a very large migration of, hey, you have the legacy software system, the tech debt, all that. On the short end, hey, we're looking at 3 months. On the high end, 6 to 9 months, right? Now, depending on how the organization goes about adopting that technology is the other thing to consider as well. So I was talking to someone that's, on the what they call public sector side, working with a lot of the government entities, and their average sales cycle is 18 months, right? So you always got to pivot there. But my biggest thing is, okay, what are some of those common pit holes that lengthen the deal, and how do we alleviate that? Um, Pretty much what I've been seeing from a lot of folks is, there may be some items on our end that we got to get together, but the faster we can move and just get this done with, the happier they're going to be. So, hey, that 3 to 6 month mark, I'm very much more inclined of, hey, look, let's just get started right away, and kind of alleviate that to that, month and a half, 2 month mark of at least my team is doing something, whether that's a free assessment or looking at something and just kind of, hey, we could kind of alleviate those pain points, and just kind of knowing once you get experience, the red lines and what to expect. And okay, there's a new stakeholder, the CEO's coming in, and you can just kind of pick up, okay, you're hinting at a concern, what is that, and just kind of knowing. So I will say the more experienced a salesperson is, the shorter you also see that kind of shrinking down. But with that being said, especially the space that, a lot of the AWS cloud use cases fall under, there's always so many different variables to consider. But, for a complex sale, being that 3 6 month, that's kind of standard industry based.
And so Loop8, you're a remote first company, correct?
Yes, correct.
Can you talk about some of the challenges of doing that?
Um, yeah,
Pros and cons, so to speak.
yes. So I prefer it just because, when it's hey, I got to go to the office. Maybe I'm connecting with somebody in one of the offices, like an AWS account manager, or I'm hosting a customer event. I do like the freedom just to kind of bounce around. The challenging part is, that in person, let me tap you on the shoulder. Hey, how do you do
There's
this?
so much goodness in that.
Yep,
Yeah.
yep. And, the stand up meetings and virtual, and like we got a good process in place. But now we're doing, it's a Loop8 tradition now. But at least once a month, we want to do a Builders Day. We all just fly in one location and get together and start build. Depending on what it is, the last one we're developing some internal tools just to really automate some of the manual tasks that we found for our team. But so we do want to, as much as we can, recreate that environment once again of, hey, I'm right next to you. I can see what you're working on. We could talk and collaborate. So there's always going to be those pros and cons, but my day is always so different. Hey, here's a tech event, and then the next day I'm having a coffee chat with somebody, and the next day bouncing around. So it fits me just because I don't like the Monday and hey, I'm in the office doing the same thing every day. But I know a lot of folks like that, and we are getting a lot of things together to where we could still have that balance of we're all in one place together.
I think it's a challenge. I think a lot of people, like, all the stats show remote work is like better, but I don't think a lot of people are being honest. Right? Like me personally, I can't work from home, right? If I work from home, I'm eating 10, 20,000 snacks. I'm binge watching Netflix. I'm fucking day drinking. The wife is like, "You're not working. Come do this for me, right?" But then again, do I want to go fucking be in a cubicle from 9 to 5 every day? No, right?
Yeah.
I think most people are not honest with themselves, right?
And that is why I do like the setup we have. We have a lot of freedom and flexibility, and everybody kind of manages their own day. But to still have those times to look forward to where we're all together, like it is needed, especially as our team is growing and scaling. I want to say the last like 2 months we almost doubled in size. So
I think the perfect situation is like if you can like come in once a week on a Wednesday, right? Just come to the same place on a Wednesday. Of course, you can't do it like you're people in San Francisco, Dallas, or Vietnam. We can't do that, of course, right? And another thing too, I told you up top, right? Their stats have proven like when companies lay off people, they're laying off remote workers first because like suppose I work for you, right? And then Tom Brown works for you. Tom Brown comes to the office every day. You see me on fucking Zoom once a week, right? We have a relationship, right?
yeah.
Like, I don't know Jason. Fuck Jason. Get the fuck out of here, right? With Tom Brown, maybe they're less working, but you're having drinks, you're doing stuff with them, right?
But that is why, like, like the remote, but there's the hybrid component to it as well, where we could meet network.
Yeah.
You see the headlines of, hey, we want folks in the office. There's a lot of orgs 5 days a week.
Yeah.
I do like that. Hey, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday. Like, hey, middle of the week. I don't want to wake up from the weekend on a Monday, commute through traffic.
It can't be Monday or Friday because you have 40 weekends and holidays. It has to be Tuesday or Wednesday.
Yep. And I do like that balance. There's a lot of companies I work with where, hey, you manage your own time when you guys want to come together, and it was the rarity of like, oh, we're all together again. Let's hang out, have fun.
Yeah.
Let's stay and have dinner. Let's do the happy hours. And now when it's like 5 days a week, you just see people like, no, I don't. I want to go home. I don't want to see.
I feel like every worker, right? It works both ways, right? Like suppose you have a company that say, hey, do what you want to do, but do your job right. And suppose Tom Brown says, hey, I'm gonna go to my kid's baseball game from 1 to 4, right? And you tell your boss at 5 o'clock, the boss, hey, I need you to do this. Like, I work 9 to 5. Like, dude, you took 3 hours of the day to do your personal stuff, right? To me, we need to do more work, and like that your employee like do stuff their day. Like, it's pretty much tell your employer, like, hey, I'm like 24/7.
Yeah, and this is going back. I know before we connected on the show, the big conversation about AI taking jobs, and you see those doomsday headlines so much. Hey, what's going to happen if AI takes all the jobs and blah, blah, blah. But let's be realistic. What I think is going to happen first is, hey, a standard 4-day work week.
Yeah.
Hey, maybe I optimize, a few things on my plate using AI, and 3 hours on the job, I'm now heading out instead of twiddling my thumbs, looking busy for 5 extra
Yeah.
hours. I think a lot of those scenarios, that's more likely what's going to happen. Is we do have more work-life balance. We are able to alleviate a lot of just mundane, tedious tasks versus, um, just kind of, hey, the old fashioned way of, you have to be 9 to 5 and look like you're working all those hours, et cetera, et cetera, right? So, um,
Here's one for you. Let's suppose AI does take the jobs. What's your take on universal basic income?
yeah, I will say, do I have the answers of what that would look like? Because there's the political aspect. There's this. My idea is that I think there's going to be, new technology does bring change, but there always needs to be the human element. It's interesting. It's been tried before of, and I'm just going to use sales as an example just because that's where I'm at. Um, but there's just a human element where, yeah, we tried alleviating it, let's say with tech and AI. There's just, AWS, their first goal was to never have a sales team.
Mm.
But they realized that we can't automate this. Humans want to talk to other humans. There's always going to be that human element. I don't think that goes away. A good example, hey, a $7 million deal, let's say with AWS, and you're the CTO, and all you did was interact with the chatbot for that. A lot of stakeholders say that's negligent. You would want to talk to actual stakeholders at Amazon, for example.
Mm.
I think there's always going to be that human element.
Mm.
So that's kind of my first question when it comes to AI. Is just going to take everybody's jobs. Um, the second part of it, though, is I think we could use this technology to help figure out kind of how does society evolve. Um, you know, there's a lot of ways that we could use this to make the world a better place, and it's not a technology problem, but there is the humankind problem, if you will. In today's day and age, we do have already huge, the biggest wealth disparity ever recorded, right? We're already in this place of, hey, things are, tight for a lot of folks financially, things like that. And that was before, the AI buzz started, right? So I think it's more about, I think there's always going to be the people element. I don't think AI would ever take all jobs, but also when it comes to basic income and kind of, how do we alleviate a lot of these problems? It is going to be, it's definitely a humankind problem, and how are we going to come together and fix that? Also, problems like, let's say, climate change, or there's not even a place on the map you can point to where, very few places where the country isn't actively in a conflict, with another country, right? So I think more the doomsday headlining is, the technology is not the scary part, but I think, hey, what are people going to do next? I think is, I always try to be positive. I have high hopes in that, the world's going to get better. But with that being said, it is a people problem, I would say, of as a society, where do we go next? And I hope, when it comes to problems such as like wealth disparity, et cetera, we're able to start doing better than what I feel like historically we've done.
Yeah, with that, I don't think people realize that's always been a problem or a solution. Maybe like 1900s, you had like J.P. Morgan, Carnegie, Vanderbilt, right?
Mhm.
There's always been people rich as fuck, right? And whether rich is like the first means or they earn it, right? You go back centuries, right? The Roman emperors, like there's always been a really very rich people. The poor is always with us, right? So I don't know if there's anything that we can society can do to change that. I know it's kind of negative and all, but yeah.
Yeah. And I think it could get better, and this is the other thing with all the AI doomsday or kind of approach of like topics such as like, okay, it's just going to take jobs and things like that I think are a lot of myths that are getting dispelled. But also, let's talk about, hey, we now understand the human brain a lot better. Hey, we're advancing cancer research. I do think there's a lot of applications that we'll look back and say, hey, once again, it's a humankind people problem. We use this for good. There was a keynote that I went and listened into, and they said, you know, historically the last, 5, 6, 7 decades. Okay, we have nuclear technology.
Mm.
So, did we use that to build, let's say, nuclear energy, or do we use it to make bombs? Right? That is not the technology is still there to stay.
Yeah.
What are people and society going to do? I think is the bigger topic, not necessarily the technology. Oh, it's going to disrupt the world as we know it. I feel like the world's already disrupted in a lot of ways, depending on how you look at it. So,
Yeah, I know. To me, I like. Of course, humankind does a lot of bad things, but to me, I think there's a good thing about humanity. Like, man, the fact we have not killed ourselves with nuclear weapons, right? To me, it's amazing. There's not been nuclear war, nuclear anything.
Yep.
Like, to me, to me, just amazing.
And the fact that we have put a lot of safeguards in place, and we are that is the forefront, when it comes to the international aspect. And this is where I say I'm positive about humankind and just society as a whole, is that things are progressing in a much better, safer world. Is there a lot more to do?
Yeah.
Yes, but
like all the stats, like we live longer, disease are getting away. Like
mhm.
that kills me when people say this is the worst time to be alive. Like, were you alive during the Holocaust?
Yeah,
Like we're alive during the Black Plague in Middle Europe. Like, yeah, this is not a bad time to be alive.
yeah, and I think I'm excited to see, during the Deep Tech Week event you had, and there's the young man with just showing how he was able to really map out, different cells and using AI to do that.
Yeah.
That's kind of more of what I expect is going to come. Is, hey, the world is still inching to get better,
Yeah.
and that's that is where my positivity comes from. Of, hey, humankind will figure it out and make it a better world than what we left it, generation after generation. So, that's kind of when it comes to the big doomsday AI. It's scary.
It's a tool.
Skynet and Terminator is going to come and take over the world. I think it's one of those myths that I think there's always going to be that people element, and once again, society.
So
We'll
back
see
to
where it goes.
UBI. I think UBI. I'll make this up. I think 99% of people, like, they'd be happy, like, hey, pay me $80,000 a year. I stay at home, watch Netflix. I wake up, take a walk. I watch plays with kids, like nothing. But 10% of the world, like, man, like, no, like I need to do something, right?
Yeah.
And that'd be a fucking killer for them, right?
So, I think of, myself. I don't ever see me retiring, and it's like, oh, you want to work your whole life? I got to be doing something. And my dad, he just retired, I think, like 5 years ago. He's worked more now. Helping my mom with different projects, and she runs a real estate business, so he's always just out and about. He's got to stay busy. I think without work, life would be boring.
I mean, retirement is a basically new concept, right?
Yeah.
Retirement is not. No one retired in 1895 or 1921. It's a new concept. Have you heard this term? 10 toes up.
No. Feel free to walk me through it.
You're gonna work until you're 10 toes up.
Yep. Okay, I'm picking up what you're putting down.
Yeah.
And that's had a lot of older relatives on my dad's side, and they lived a long, fruitful life, right? But yeah, once they, late 80s, they really slowed down, and that's when all the health problems just tack on. And I really do think there is something about being active and waking up and having a goal. Hey, this is what I got to do today is so important. What is it? The Ikigai philosophy of the small things. The reason why a lot of folks in Japan live longer is because, hey, I'm passionate about my garden, so I wake up every day and I'm excited. Or I'm passionate about volunteering at this place, and so they always have that kind of goal of something they wake up and look forward to and do something.
So back to Loop8. What is the problem that Loop8 solves?
Yes, quite a bit, but I would say, to summarize it in three: modernizing technical infrastructure, right? And so think of, hey, you're the technical leadership of this company. We could really help advise when it comes to, once again, we talked about it in length, the tech debt, AI, different items there. Secondly, I would say um, when it comes to Loop8 and really how we help folks, you know, um, it really does help allow folks to innovate and focus on the art of the possible versus, hey, I have to sell you a one size fits all solution. So that's the second item. Number three, I would say allowing folks with no technical background to leverage the AI technologies. So once again, going back, the brick and mortar shop or SMB or the cowboy hat company, you know, it's important to have and leverage that expertise so that, hey, the different ways to use AI we're still doing, we're able to be more efficient and compete with, different, folks in your industry and space. So we're doing a lot with like SMB automation. Once again, having tools where folks could just kind of instantly deploy, solutions. Things like that that empower. Let's say you're a bakery shop. Hey, we could really optimize your time. We're actually working with a distillery out in Olympia. And hey, it's a very small team, and what they want to spend their time doing is bottling and curating the mixture, all the different administrative tasks. Hey, like, can you guys help us get some bandwidth and help us automate some of this stuff? I think that's always so cool to see. Once again, these organizations that are not tech companies start innovating and adopting that tech.
So, quote unquote, like, who is like your base, like your perfect customer, so to speak?
Yep. So I would say your bootstrap or early stage startups, like your bootstrap seed on the cusp of like a Series A. We could definitely help. That is very usually a lot more tech intensive. The historical, like, I've been seeing this more in like the medium sized business, but some smaller business of, we do have different items on the technical roadmap that we need to modernize and help out. And then last but not least, once again, are those small businesses, brick and mortar shops. So it's kind of a span of three very different ones. But the way our team is set up is let's work backwards, have the right engineers based on your industry and what you're looking to do, and then develop that scope and start building these custom solutions that literally fit your unique organization. The end goal is to really empower a lot of these folks and alleviate the headache. You'd be surprised, even the experienced CTOs that I've worked with, they scratch their head of like, hey, this landscape is changing so quickly. Hey, I do need help, right? And it's just interesting to be in that space to provide that guidance, and having the certified engineers really, hey, here's where you're at today. We did the assessment, and here's what we're going to do next, and we're going to make your life easier by doing X, Y, Z. It is always just a rewarding, outcome when it comes to what Loop8 does.
So how do you determine what's the process for figuring, okay, you bring a customer on, like, okay, you know what, maybe Loop8 is not the right match for this company?
Yeah, I would say, I always start the conversation. Are we going to buy or should we build? So should I buy an out of the box solution that solves this? Or does it make more sense? Hey, what I need is a bit more unique where you have to build a custom solution. So that's where I always want to start the sales discovery process. Are you looking to buy versus build? Let's say you do want something simplistic. I just want a chatbot to help me write emails. What we're going to do is way overkill. There's ChatGPT, Claude, etc. There's already solutions built for that. But let's say, we had a use case where there's a lot of internal company memos, a lot of the different programs for this organization, and the directory was, it was so outdated. None of the HR was bombarded of different requests, things like that. So, hey, we could aggregate all this data and have a chatbot to really help guide the employee. Hey, I want to take paternity leave. What programs are available? And literally will help guide. That makes more sense. We got to build that custom solution and have aggregate the data and have that custom chatbot, let's say, where that would be a good fit. Versus, hey, if you just want something simplistic where there's already a solution you should buy, I would say that's where yeah, I'd be the first to say maybe you should go this direction, like, and there's a lot of different resources there. But it's more of like, hey, that organization is experiencing such a unique pain point that, we could come in and once again build those solutions for them.
What's your take or viewpoint on the tech scene in Seattle?
It's very interesting, and I'm going to loop Portland in as well. So I've been working with a lot of VCs in Seattle and Portland, and just kind of the startup ecosystem. When I, got my first tech job, everybody it was all software based. All these companies were all software, and I remember reading an article, and it was talking about um, we need some of the greatest minds to start pivoting to the hardware side of things. And that is one thing I'm starting to see a lot of folks really want more of is, all right, the technical product needs to be something tangible. That is a big theme I'm seeing. I know there's a lot of organizations in Seattle that, are doing items like that. One of the VCs I work with in the Portland area, a big push on robotics, and yes, there's going to be kind of that software side that goes with that, and there's so many different applications where the organizations she's invested in, she wants to see like how does this stick, right? But I am starting to see that need of a lot of the new startups that are coming up. You do start seeing something physical that you could touch, not just only software based.
So on June 8th, I did my Jason Cabin Experience Deep Tech demo event, right? Can you just talk about your experience at my event?
Yeah, and that was a pretty eye-opening one, and you definitely saw that theme, right? There's, I remember we talked before going when you were, inviting folks, and I said, well, what do you mean by deep tech? And you said, hey, if I could just build it, then it's probably not deep tech. And there was just so much innovation in everybody's booth, that showcasing what they're doing. Um, you just see that very much, like, how do I say this? Everything was so innovative and different. And with that being said, there was a lot of like tangible products. I know there's a few companies doing items with like drone footage and helping map out surveying land and things like that. There's another one, once again, hey, we're developing new cell architecture. Honestly, man, I tried reading through some of his literature, and I'm like, man, I gotta Google every other word because it's so intense, right? But I do like that, and I'm glad to see that Seattle is one of those tech markets where you know everybody compares it to, let's say, the Bay Area in New York. There's just something special about Seattle. There's something different, and you're still seeing a lot of the great innovation come up that I feel like all the attention that the Bay Area and New York gets, it's more just focused on, hey, let's compete and be, the number one company, let's say for the self-driving cars or this or that. Where in Seattle, I really do see a lot of, folks, hey, I want to develop this and really create this product that's going to help people do this or that, or it's going to, forge a new way we do this or that. And the innovation, especially at your event, was just refreshing to see, first off. But I nerded out quite a bit. It was pretty cool.
And of course, having a free pasta and a free cocktail bar kind of helped out too, right?
Oh, yes, yes. It was a great way to, I always want to give kudos to folks in the Seattle tech community that bring, a lot of the different folks into one room, right? Okay, cool. I'm very much AWS focused, as I've said a million times. But, hey, it's nice to go there, and there's other folks from different organizations that I wouldn't have had met with if it wasn't for a lot of the leaders in the community like yourself really hosting these events where everybody could come together and just showcase all the exciting new things that's happening in the Seattle tech scene.
So, you obviously always talk about Loop8 some, right? But now, can you basically talk about how Loop8 got started, what the focus is now, and what the future vision or plan is for Loop8 going forward?
Mm-hmm. So, Ruby, our CEO and founder, once again, been in this space for quite some time. It's actually funny how this company was born. We did a lot of work together, even when I was an AWS rep and working with different partners. We worked, with together in a few organizations. and she literally pressed the pause button. Hey, let me take some time off, and pretty much she gets a phone call one day. Oh my goodness, are you able to help me with this specific thing? And it turned into, okay, yeah, let me help. Turned into, she does such a great job when it comes to the technical aspect and really helping folks um, set up the cloud right, and really develop the proper infrastructure and really help them with the technical roadmap, etc. But it turned into, oh wow, more. Oh, actually, this is like we're getting referrals and long term customers. I got to actually build a team, and so the reason, I remember talking to her and helping her out with a few items when it comes to like okay, like just bouncing around some ideas. But the exciting part was just seeing that organically and naturally, a lot of people are saying we like seeing the valuable outcomes that Loop8's building, and here's more work. Hey, here's this other initiative we got, and it just kind of organically grew. Um, and it's rare. So I worked with hundreds of AWS partners in this space, and I've seen good, bad, ugly. Of you know, maybe there was a situation where the customer wasn't happy with what was built, etc. But just all the work I've done with Ruby, I've seen just so much successful outcomes. I'm like, hey, let me join, let me help build out this go-to-market side, and so that's kind of how the journey started for me. But even still, hey, at first it was going to be this, small thing where, referral-based business, and hey, we'll just kind of stick to our bread and butter of helping with like DevOps and, helping folks get interested in the cloud. The topic of AI came up so much. All right, let's build the AI team. All the way, it kept stacking on each other. Of wow, we have a full-grown company, and long story short, building out those partnerships I mentioned earlier in the episode with AWS, Databricks, Salesforce. We're getting a lot of business coming in, and I kid you not, like the last month, our team, like the biggest problem we have now is, all right, to keep up with the scale and growth. We're growing the team. There's so many opportunities to continue the work that we already did. So maybe it was just a small use case to help somebody get started on AWS, is now turning into, wow, you're seeing success too with the way we built it out. But to answer the last part, hey, what is the end goal? It is really to once again connect with those folks who are looking to innovate. Those organizations that I want to do X, Y, and Z, but here's this reason why we can't as of yet, and we can come in and, from a technical perspective, solve those issues and just innovate and build with them. Right? Brings me up to my point. I know we're talking about the Deep Tech Week. Um, Everybody gets into tech for one or two reasons, right? Either, hey, it is let's make a lot of money, or hey, let's build something that makes the world a better place. This is kind of, I know that's like a very high level, but I do like our team, the way we're helping folks innovate. That is truly the mission, and there's a lot of passion behind it with our team. Of the daunting task of building out custom technical solutions. It is daunting. There's a headache, and just to really partner with folks and help them innovate and build is just a rewarding thing. So that's still true our bread and butter, and what we're looking to continue doing. And it's exciting. So definitely keep an eye out for us of what we do next when it comes to we're just rapidly scaling and growing. Already seeing kind of that hockey stick projections, right? So
can you talk some more about how like Ruby convinced you to join the team, like a recruiting process, if you so to speak?
yeah, once we had an early conversation, and prior to this, we've probably known and worked with each other. She worked for a few different organizations, but they were within the AWS ecosystem when I was there, and known each other for a few years and did a lot of great work. We have a lot of success stories together. And once she was kind of, that phone conversation of just bouncing ideas around and just seeing what she's been up to, there wasn't much convincing. I'm like, man, this sounds exciting.
Yeah.
I want to, first off, just love her methodology and the way she approaches a lot of the things. And what I was looking for next career wise is just to build like a go to market function from scratch, the sales and marketing side. And it was really just like timing. Everything's just lining up. This is great. And then it was honestly a no-brainer decision for me. Love working with Ruby. Love working with the Loop8 team. It's been great. great.
So Ben, is there anything I should have asked you I have not asked you yet, or anything else you want to talk about?
Um, I will say I love this setup, especially with everybody who's been on the show and uh, having us write our name on the
Yeah.
wall. I do just want to say I'm just thankful once again for you. Giving us the experience to come on the show and just kind of share what we've been doing. But also, once again, want to reiterate how much I appreciate what you're doing locally here in the Seattle tech scene, and
Thank you.
just glad to be a part of it.
Thank you. So Ben, how can people reach out to you?
Yes. So feel free, the Loop8 website, loop8.io. The second one, feel free to find me. I'm very active on LinkedIn. So Benjamin King, but once you Google that, you're going to see a ton of people come up. So, but you'll definitely see, on the Loop8 page, my profile. Feel free to, ping me, message me. The other and probably best way to get a hold of me, ben.king@loop8.io is my email address. Last but not least, if you do just want to stay tuned of just, hey, what I'm doing, feel free to also tune into Clouded with a Chance of Awesome, and you'll definitely see what we're up to there.
So one thing I forgot about talk about these events you do.
Yep. So, I always want to support the events. Once again, hey, it was events that helped me get started, just networking, doing things like that. The big events that we're doing is, let's look at the West Coast. All right, Bay Area, there's tech events going on all the time. We want to avoid that. Instead, what are those underserved areas? So we just did an event in Palm Springs. All right, a tech AI event there. Like, what's, but the area is underserved. There's so many people who want to innovate and do these, they have initiatives of their own. Next, we're looking at like the Fresno area at an ag tech focus, type of event to help folks. But, did one in Salt Lake City, et cetera. So just kind of, all right, those growing areas that we're not going to consider, you're not considered a tech hub. You don't have folks building tech events and doing that together. We want to be there and really help, get in front of folks, educate them. Hey, here's the best way to get started and approach to, technology. And, the Vibathons and, the different things like that. So literally all up and down the West Coast is our focus, but just really tuning into more of those areas that sometimes are overlooked. So that is the big why behind it. You'll see also Loop8 sponsors a lot of the different local Seattle events too, and a lot of events in Portland. What I really want to get going that's near and dear to me is get a lot more going in the Tacoma area. So folks that are familiar, like that's the city south of Seattle, and it's all kind of grown into one big one. But 80% of the, tech workforce commutes up to Seattle, right? And there is kind of a dire need to start reinvigorating that area. But you'll see kind of the rhyme and reason the events we're doing. We definitely want to go pretty much those areas where there's an appetite for the hackathons and learning about AI and building and doing stuff that may not get the attention, let's say, that San Fran and New York are getting currently.
So that's one frustrating about Tacoma. Like, I've been involved in tech like maybe 12, 13 years, right? Every few years, Tacoma like gains momentum to take stuff, then like, bam, it just disappears, right? Like, for some reason, Tacoma does not maintain the momentum, whatever reason that it is, right?
Yeah, and I think, this is my theory, and I would like to back it up with some data, but sometimes there's just one big entity. So, like the State Farm office that was there, once they left, a lot of the small incubators around, and there's some co-working spaces, and just folks that, okay, in that downtown area, it all just went away overnight just because the big conglomerate left. You could count on one hand how many established tech companies there are there. I think the big way to solve it is, having more of those early stage startup, having more attention from investors to empower them to, hey, you have this idea, let's build and do that. And, a few successful use cases, and then, hey, the cool startups that you see here in Seattle, you see similar stuff going on in Tacoma. That's going to really reinvigorate that downtown economy. Like, it is so weird sometimes to go there. It's a ghost town almost sometimes.
I mean, there's like 4 or 5 colleges. There's Fort Lewis, I mean, JBLM, Bremerton. There's so much talent down there.
Yep. And there a lot of people scratch their head of like, why isn't there more going on? But there's a lot of local chapters that are doing more. I would like to see more of that be tech related.
Yeah.
So, but the other areas I mentioned too. So like Fresno's another good one, and there's a lot of different cities where there is that appetite for tech. And for one reason or another, it is the local economy. It's just there needs to be more organizations taking the time to do more out there and such.
Yeah. So one more time, anything else you want to talk about?
No, thumbs up from my side. Thanks once again.
Hey Ben, thanks for being here.
I will
Go
say the bourbon, excellent. This is
yeah. One more shout out to Two Bar Spirits. They sponsored me. They sponsored the Deep Tech event. They're in the Soda neighborhood. All female production team. Just a really, really, really great bourbon, right? So Ben, thanks for your time again.
Yes, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
And to our listeners.